Chapter 341, The Appalling Yellow River. Chapter 341, The Appalling Yellow River. How is this possible? As the middle-aged man in uniform left with Wang Xian, Bian Yaoquan stood in the same spot with full and round eyes. Those eyes were filled with utter disbelief as he stared at their backs. He clenched his fist. To think he was the most talented and outstanding disciple of medical Saint Sect, a level 3 alchemist at age 30. He had been told that he was a rare genius. His parents had even told him that he would be the most attention-grabbing genius as soon as he walked out of medical Saint Sect. He was unrivaled in the younger generation. Yet he had received blows one after another today. In particular from someone who actually knew art of refining elixir pills, and was so proficient in it. His incredible refining speed and 100% success rate were totally unbelievable. How could a factionless doctor be so dominating? Bian Yaoquan was totally stupefied. This blow was extremely harsh for someone who was prideful. Miracle Dr. Wang from Rivertown must have met a good opportunity. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to achieve such a formidable stage at age 20 with proficient medical skills and art of refining elixir pills. An inborn expert could not help but exclaim. A miracle doctor who is only 20 ranked 9th on the chart. This is already shocking. Who could have thought that he is such a powerful alchemist? Miracle Dr. Wang has unlimited potential. He's great. No wonder I heard that Miracle Dr. Wang is strong in his networking with several inborn experts helping him. He's actually a powerful alchemist. A few experts were discussing in whispers. Some of the surrounding young men and middle-aged men were looking at Wang Xian with faces full of envy. How could someone be so outstanding? Good opportunity? The elder from Sacred Followers Guild stood by the side with radiance flickering in his eyes. He squinted his eyes slightly with a glimmer of greed flashing in them. At the same time, a few experts were deep in thought. Young master. The poison duo walked to Bian Yaoquan and called out softly. The three of them headed out. An innocent man gets into trouble because of his wealth. Wang Xian, a rogue cultivator, did not know that people speculated he could have obtained a great possession because of his performance just now. Somebody was up to no good now. Phew, it's all done. Wang Xian had finally refined a total of 330 pills at night. There was an extra 30 pills. Chief here. Wang Xian walked out of the tent and saw the middle-aged man in uniform waiting for him at the door. He smiled and tossed the bag of elixir pills to him. Here's 300 of them. I'm keeping some of the extras, Wang Xian said with a smile. Her? The middle-aged man was slightly taken aback, but soon he was thrilled. He cast a glance at the elixir pills in the bottle with excitement in his eyes. 300 was already beyond our expectations. We would be satisfied even if you gave us 200. The middle-aged man in uniform smiled, but he was hesitant as he looked at Wang Xian. With a grin he asked, Miracle Dr. Wang, are you interested in joining us? I guarantee you that the remuneration would be more than you expect. Sorry, I'm used to being solo. Wang Xian shook his head and declined. If that's the case, we'll not insist on it. I hope we can work together again in the future. The middle-aged man in uniform stretched out his hand and replied with a smile. Sure. Wang Xian beamed. Working with the state would benefit him greatly after all. Miracle Dr. Wang, let me take you to your resting place. We'll be entering the zone tomorrow morning, said the middle-aged man in uniform as he looked ahead. The pitch-black darkness in front looked like an enormous devouring monster at night. Wang Xian cast his gaze and narrowed his eyes slightly. When he was back in the tent that he was residing place, someone sent food over. Not long later, Sun Lingxiu and Miracle Dr. Bloodman walked in. Xiao Xian. Sun Lingxiu sat beside him with a beaming face. How did it go, Lingxiu? Did you make any discoveries? Asked Wang Xian to Sun Lingxiu. No, I don't specialize in this. Sun Lingxiu shook her head slowly as she turned to Miracle Dr. Bloodman. Master, there is an appalling bloodline power in them. We must watch our back tomorrow. Miracle Dr. Bloodman answered with a stern-looking face. Upon hearing his words, Wang Xian was even more certain about his speculation. Yes, let's be careful. There must be some domineering things inside. But of course there's a chance that it's dead. Otherwise, the other creatures would not have mutated. Wang Xian guessed that the domineering existence with a daunting bloodline must be dead. When other living creatures fed on its body and blood, they mutated and evolved. Okay. Sun Lingxiu nodded. They went on to chat a little longer before they turned in. Wang Xian walked out of his tent and gazed ahead. He hesitated and called off the idea of scouting alone at night. The next morning, everyone gathered at the same place after breakfast. Approximately 150 people gathered with 20 inborn experts, the weakest ones being level 8 martial artists. Today we're going to investigate the situation inside the zone. It's going to be dangerous. Please watch out. Before that, please have a blood cleansing pill each. The middle-aged man in uniform from yesterday stood in front of the group and spoke while looking at them. They nodded and took a blood cleansing pill from the soldiers. Glances were cast at Wang Xian as he had really refined 300 elixir pills. His art of refining elixir pills was formidable. Let's go. If you meet any danger, stay united and work together, said the middle-aged man in uniform as he led the group inside. The group followed behind him, passing through the electric fence. They came to flat land at this time. One could look far in just a glance with houses vaguely visible in the distance. There was nothing unusual around the grassland. Everyone was looking around without looking tense. Given the strength of this group, it was almost comparable to a weak sacred sect. Hence, it was a piece of cake having to deal with some level 7 or 8 creatures. The group sped up as they continued walking. According to the investigation done by the middle-aged man in uniform, those mutated creatures were likely coming from the Yellow River. The first thing they had to do was to check the tributary, spanning 10 kilometers long and 1,000 meters wide. The soil was not swampy, but the grass was almost up to their knees. "Watch your step," an inborn expert suddenly shouted. All of them were surprised to see a daunting leech heading toward a miracle doctor for a bite with its enormous teeth. Swish! A sword came in a flash, slaying the leech and cutting it in half. Be careful. They can remain hidden in the grass very well with their small sizes. Those who are not inborn experts yet must pay extra attention. The middle-aged man in uniform made a reminder again. In the past, he had already lost thousands of soldiers in this patch of grassland. However, it should be slightly easier with all these experts around. Croak. Just then, a rapid and coarse croaking sound was heard from far off, stunning everyone. Chapter 342 Blood-Sucking Toad. Chapter 342 Blood-Sucking Toad. The sudden sound emanated from afar and surprised the crowd. The rapid and coarse sound wasn't that of a frog. Instead, the sound was low and deep. The sound emanated from at least several thousand meters away. What's making that sound? Everyone was taken aback as they looked towards the source. This sound had made their hearts skip a beat. Several meters ahead of them was a branch of the Yellow River. For a sound to come from such a far place, the one making it would definitely be horrifying. Are there other mutated creatures? The expression on the middle-aged man in military uniform had stiffened with dismay. He looked ahead with his deep eyes before turning back and speaking to the crowd. There might be unknown and powerful creatures ahead. Everyone, please be careful. The crowd kept their nonchalant attitude in check and started observing their surroundings attentively. Let's go. Let's quicken our pace. As the middle-aged man in military uniform finished his words, he dashed ahead at astonishing speed. The crowd followed closely behind and headed towards the Yellow River. Bam, bam, bam. The crowd was really fast. The leeches and ants along the way were alarmed and attacked them directly. However, the fighting capacity of the crowd was incredible. As they waved their weapons and shot out sword rays, these leeches and ants were split into halves. "These mutated creatures are everywhere," said Sun Lingxiu. The crowd had encountered over 50 mutated animals while dashing for 1,000 meters. Wang Xian nodded his head and looked to the side. There was a dilapidated village beside him with roughly over 200 houses. At this moment, there were some dull red blood stains all around this small village. There were no longer any humans within the village. What was left were corpses of some reared animals. "We are approaching the Yellow River. Everyone, please be careful," the middle-aged man in military uniform reminded the crowd. The crowd slowed down and looked towards the Yellow River ahead of them. Screech, screech, screech. The crowd gathered at a dilapidated house with an area marked out for rearing pigs. Suddenly, all of them picked up dense buzzing sounds. They were shocked and instantly looked to their side. "Those are mutated mosquitoes. Be careful." An inborn expert turned over and shouted with a serious expression. "Fuck. There are so many of them." Everyone was alarmed. Each mosquito was the size of a human's palm. As they charged out of the house by the thousands, the razor-sharp edge of their mouths had a strong scent of blood. At least 1,000 mutated mosquitoes were attacking them. Wang Xian squinted his eyes and looked at the nest of mutated mosquitoes before him. They were known as cadaveric mosquitoes. Among them there was a level 10 existence. On top of that there were many level 9 cadaveric mosquitoes. Be careful. Some of these mutated mosquitoes are as strong as an inborn realm expert. An inborn expert shouted and reminded the crowd. He was shocked to hear a clang collision sound when he slashed his sharp sword at a cadaveric mosquito. Rumble. The group of inborn experts immediately gave their all and did not hold back their strength. Aurora. Blood mist. Sun Lingxiu struck at the same time as Miracle Doctor Blood Man. Flashes of brilliance cut through the skies, illuminating the day even more brightly. As for Miracle Doctor Blood Man, he shrouded over 100 mutated mosquitoes with his blood mist. Soon these cadaveric mosquitoes fell to the ground like raindrops. So strong. When the surrounding crowd saw Sun Lingxiu and Miracle Doctor Bloodman's attacks, their pupils constricted unconsciously. The range of their attack had eliminated 1/5 of the total cadaveric mosquitoes. The group of Miracle Doctors also looked at them in awe. As Miracle Doctors, their battle capacities were much weaker than ordinary inborn experts. However, the Holy Goddess and Miracle Doctor Bloodman were completely different from them. Their fighting capacities were off the charts. The middle-aged man in military uniform also took a glance at Sun Lingxiu and Miracle Doctor Bloodman. After which he shouted, "Go!" The crowd was on high alert. Among the 1,000 mutated mosquitoes they had encountered previously, there was an inborn-level mosquito. Logically, the center of the source of the virus might have even stronger animals. It was especially so considering the sound they had heard previously that made their hearts skip a beat. The crowd approached the Yellow River carefully. The water of the river was incomparably muddy. There was no way one could see the situation below the surface. On the surface, there were floating corpses of ducks and birds. As this wasn't the main channel of the Yellow River, the river water wasn't flowing. Faint ripples were formed only when faint wind disturbed the calm surface. The breadth of this segment of the Yellow River was over 1,000 meters. It wasn't particularly broad but wasn't narrow either. The crowd arrived at the edge and carefully observed their surroundings. It would seem that the sound from before should have originated from this vicinity, an inborn expert commented with a solemn expression. "Let me take a look." Poison Doc Yanxi moved his arm and a green poisonous snake dived into the Yellow River. He still had a black venomous snake with him. Clearly he wasn't willing to risk the black snake. "Let me take a look at the river water." An old man waved his hand and a ball of water flew towards him. The center of this part of the Yellow River can reach a depth of 15. It is relatively deep compared to other areas, the middle-aged man in military uniform explained to the group. Wang Xian squinted his eyes. A blue and red light flashed in his eyes. In his view, the muddy water gradually turned transparent. The situation under the surface gradually appeared in his sight. There aren't any fish at all. Not even one. Wang Xian was slightly surprised that there wasn't even a living fish in the huge and broad Yellow River. That is a cadaveric leech. Wang Xian turned his head around and looked to his right. A palm-sized leech was resting at the bottom of the riverbed. Suddenly, that cadaveric leech suddenly accelerated and attacked towards the direction of that green snake. SSSSSS. The green snake was clearly not any ordinary snake. Sensing the cadaveric leech, it immediately lifted its head and stared coldly at it. Swish. The cadaveric leech charged furiously ahead, but the green snake wasn't flustered. It opened its mouth and revealed 2 huge fangs which it sank into the leech. After which it swam rapidly towards shore. Croak. At this moment, a water bubble appeared before the snake. A huge and dreadful toad-like creature was swimming towards the green snake at an astonishing speed. The toad-like creature extended its tongue. On its tongue there were various suction cups that looked frightening. The green snake didn't even have the time to retaliate when it was wrapped by the tongue. After which, the dense suction cups instantly started wiggling. At a pace visible to the human eye, the green snake was sucked dry. As for that cadaveric leech, it managed to survive and fled rapidly. The commotion within the water also attracted the attention of the crowd on shore as they looked on. Splash. At this instant, the toad-like creature appeared to have picked up the scent of the humans on shore and jumped out of the water directly. Bam. A 1-meter huge horrifying mutated creature stared coldly at the crowd. It had dense, bulging meatballs all around its body and was dull yellow in color. Subsequently, it opened its mouth and revealed its horrifying tongue, which it stuck out and pointed to the sky. Chapter 343 Corpse 1. Chapter 343, Corpse 1. A mutated toad? Everyone was shocked by the toad that suddenly leaped out. They staggered 2 steps back as they stared at the mutated toad with vigilance. Croak. The toad let out a low cry with its tongue moving slowly while it glared coldly at the group of people. Cadaveric toad, level 10. Unable to extract dragon energy. A message popped out in Wang Xian's mind. But he realized that this toad was much stronger than those usual level 10 creatures. In particular, the long tongue in its mouth looked terrifying. A toad that actually grew to a meter in size? What is this? What caused such a horrible transformation in them? A middle-aged man was observing the toad. Kill it and dissect it, a miracle doctor holding on to his silver needles announced to the group. Croak. Just when that miracle doctor finished his sentence, the mutated toad moved. As its 4 limbs moved, it charged at one inborn expert at a terrifying speed. Beast, go to hell? Those inborn experts standing in front were looking cold as they wielded their swords at it. 4 inborn experts struck immediately at it while the rest observed the enormous mutated toad from behind. Bam bam bam. Oh no! As the sharp radiance from the sword struck the body of the mutated toad, not a single trace was left on it. This caused a drastic change in the expressions of 4 inborn experts who were attacking it. At this moment, that mutated toad suddenly extended its tongue from 2 meters to 5 meters long. The overcrowding mouthparts were horrifying. Poof. The inborn expert was appalled when the toad struck at him. He crossed his arms in front of his chest, defending himself with mighty strength. However, his defense energy was penetrated just like a piece of paper. At a speed visible to the naked eye, that inborn expert's body shrunk. Croak. That terrifying toad was enjoying itself. Oh no, that toad has reached half-step to Dan realm. The middle-aged man in military uniform was horrified. He quickly waved the saber in his hand, aiming at the tongue of that mutated toad. Half-step to Dan realm. All the inborn experts were taken aback by horror. Those experts who had not reached the inborn realm quickly stepped back. Let's strike together. The middle-aged man in the military uniform shouted immediately when his saber bounced off as soon as it hit the mutated toad's tongue. Attack. All the inborn experts were surprised by the power of the mutated toad, which had instantly killed an inborn expert. An inborn expert had been killed in a split second with no hope for treatment. Boom boom. The sharp radiance from the swords, fiery whirling weapons and powerful strikes bombarded the mutated toad. Croak. Yet it ignored all the attacks, assaulting only the middle-aged man in the military uniform. Boom boom. All their strikes left only slight traces on the mutated toad. What a dominating defense. The surrounding people were horrified. A film of cold sweat was covering the forehead of the middle-aged man in military uniform. Azure Dragon Saber Slay. With both his hands gripping his saber, he blasted a full-blown attack at the mutated toad. Bam. The razor-sharp saber, accompanied by energy of the Gold Summit, only left a half-meter-long blood trace on the toad. The middle-aged man in military uniform leaped and staggered back as he gasped. Level 8 weapon and my full-force attack could only leave a slight injury on the mutated toad. What a domineering defense it has. Everyone watch out. Just now, when my sword hit that fellow's eyes, it only left a faint trace on it. The defense is simply appalling. There's no weakness at all. Another inborn expert stared at the mutated toad with a sword in his hand, looking nasty. What a strong mutated toad. Bian Yaoquan and the rest of the young and middle-aged men who were not inborns yet were horrified as a score of inborn experts was staring at the mutated toad. We'll trap it. The rest attack. At this time, Sun Lingxiu squinted her eyes as she lifted her palms slowly. Let's kill this thing off now. At the same time, Miracle Dr. Bloodman stepped forward with streams of blood flowing down from his feet, spreading rapidly towards the mutated toad. Holy light trap. Blood confinement. After the soft groan from Sun Lingxiu, Miracle Dr. Bloodman followed suit with a bellow. White-colored lights crisscrossed each other. Crimson bloody aura attached to each light ray, trapping the mutated toad in a red-colored cage. Bam. The mutated toad seemed to have no other emotions except banging itself into the cage. However, the double binding powers caused the toad to bounce off from the cage. Attack. The surrounding 20 inborn experts grabbed their weapons and wielded them at that mutated toad with strong forces. Boom boom. Every attack the inborn experts made seemed to be firing a violent explosion. Bam bam bam. Yet, the mutated toad did not seem to feel the pain as it knocked itself against the surrounding trap violently. Oh no, the trap can't hold any longer. At this time, Sun Lingxiu had a change in her expression. The brightness around her intensified as she looked even more like the goddess of light. Its defense is too domineering. More than a score of inborn experts could not inflict serious injuries on it. Those people who were not inborns were appalled when they saw the light injuries on the mutated toad's body. Prison duo, take my level 9 weapon, sky-splitting blade. When Bian Yaoquan saw this from the back, he swung his arm, and a half-meter-long weapon appeared in his hand. He yelled at Old Du and flung it. Level 9 weapon. The surrounding inborn experts had a slight change in their expressions. Some of them looked over fervently. Level 9 weapons were incredibly sharp and fearsome. Sure. Old Du revealed a smile as he reached out his arm and took the sky-splitting blade. Drawing a sword radiance that was a few meters long, he encompassed himself in poisonous smoke with a swift move. Swish. As the level 9 weapon cut across, it left an inch-deep wound on the mutated toad. Such a sharp weapon. That's a formidable level 9 weapon. Everyone was astonished by the wound left on the mutated toad, which was deep into the bones. Awesome. He carried a level 9 weapon around with him. Is this how affluent and resourceful medical Saint Sect is? Young Master Bien's self-defense weapon is actually a level 9 weapon. I really envy him. Even for weapons that are seemingly like decor, his weapon is level 9. We really can't compare with him at all. The rest of the crowd slightly lifted their chins and looked at Bian Yaoquan, whose face was full of smiles. They were all envious of him. Their backings might have been strong, but they were nowhere near this young Master Bien. Chapter 344 Corpse 2. Chapter 344, Corpse 2. A level 9 weapon is incomparably valuable. Even an inborn expert would find it hard to obtain a level 9 weapon. Bian Yaoquan remarked proudly. Having a level 9 weapon was also an exemplification of one's standing. He had something that even inborn experts didn't have. I'll use my weapon to slay this creature. He looked emotionlessly at the ongoing battle as his lips curved into a smile. It's going to get away. Old Du, we will pin it down while you attack it with the level 9 weapon. The middle-aged man in military uniform shouted loudly after seeing the mutated toad breaking out of the restraints of the cage. Leave it to me. I'll definitely kill it within 10 strikes. Old Du held the sky-splitting blade in his hand and spoke confidently. Holy goddess, be careful. At this moment, the mutated toad charged towards Sun Lingxiu. It shot its horrifying tongue at her while fixing its gaze on her. Sun Lingxiu was slightly surprised and instantly emitted dazzling light. Swish. However, a long sword with a golden shine slashed towards the mutated toad while it was in mid-air. Before the sword reached it, the glow of the sword had slashed it. All the surrounding experts with weapons in their hands could feel the resonance from their weapons. Bam. To the astonishment of the crowd, the golden long sword cut into the head of the toad directly. The mutated toad fell to the ground. What? This? The surrounding experts who were getting ready to attack were taken aback and shocked. That golden longsword was actually able to cut into the body of the toad. How could that be possible? Despite having it surrounded and attacking it for some time, they were only able to inflict minor injuries to it previously. Not bad, it's pretty sharp. A peal of light-hearted laughter resounded and the surrounding crowd instantly looked over. Sensing the crowd's attention, Wang Xian smiled and pointed the scabbard of Zhan Lu ahead of him. Bzz bzz. Zhan Lu, which had pierced the mutated toad, vibrated violently. After emitting a crisp buzzing sound, it flew back into the scabbard. No blood was left on the razor-sharp blade at all. That is an inborn spiritual weapon. Seeing this, an inborn expert couldn't hold back and exclaimed. He stared intensely at Zhan Lu and Wang Xian's hand. Inborn spiritual weapon. Oh gosh. It's an inborn spiritual weapon. The surrounding crowd was greatly shocked. Inborn spiritual weapons were weapons often regarded as only appearing in legends. Even though they were inborn experts, they rarely saw one, let alone possessing one. Blacksmith and alchemist were both occupations taken up by few. The most powerful and known Grandmaster Blacksmith was only level 7. He could forge level 7 weapons. However, that's still a huge difference from an inborn spiritual weapon. An inborn spiritual weapon could be the treasure of the clan for a sacred clan or sect. The reason why they were so horrifying was because they possessed spirituality and the ability to suppress ordinary weapons. If a half-step to inborn expert used an inborn spiritual weapon, he could even slay an inborn expert. An inborn spiritual weapon was incomparably sharp and could easily break through the defense of an inborn expert. Around Wuxia, most of the inborn experts had level 6 or 7 weapons. A few had level 8 weapons while only Bian Yaoquan had the level 9 sky-splitting blade. A level 9 weapon had already greatly surprised them, let alone an inborn spiritual weapon. One should note that the inborn level Haozhong had previously surprised the entire sacred sect, Heavenly Sound Sect. This is Zhan Lu. Wuxia could tell everyone's attentions were fixed on the long sword in his hand. He smiled, lifted it and explained to the crowd. Zhan Lu? It's actually Zhan Lu. The top 3 weapon in history. Inborn spiritual weapon Zhan Lu. How incredible. Our combined all-out attack only managed to inflict light injuries on the mutated toad. Yet Zhan Lu killed it directly. Zhan Lu is so much stronger than level 9 weapons. Before the inborn spiritual weapon, everything else is just scraps. Even a level 9 weapon couldn't possibly be a match for it. The surrounding inborn experts exclaimed in shock as they turned and looked at the dead mutated toad. Behind them, the rest of the crowd stared fervently at Zhan Lu. They were shocked and dumbfounded. Inborn spiritual weapon. Miracle Dr. Wang's weapon is the inborn spiritual weapon, Zhan Lu. Oh gosh. I thought young Master Bien was incredible to possess a level 9 weapon. Who would have expected the sword of Miracle Dr. Wang to be an inborn spiritual weapon? Just a simple wave of his hand and the inborn spiritual weapon killed the mutated toad. What horrifying sharpness. I thought that the sword was just for decoration. I would have never expected. It would appear that Miracle Dr. Wang actually has deeper pockets than young Master Bien. Powerful medical skills, an alchemist and now his weapon. The strength that Miracle Dr. Wang from Rivertown had demonstrated over the past 2 days was too shocking. Even the core disciple of a sacred sect with hundreds of years of history couldn't be compared with him. Bian Yaoquan's jaw had dropped and he was in disbelief. Following which, his expression turned gloomy as he stared bitterly at Wuxia. He clenched his fist tightly. This rascal was going against him in all ways. Murderous intent gleamed in Bian Yaoquan's eyes. The surrounding inborn experts consciously and subconsciously looked at Zhan Lu fervently. Let me take a look at that mutated toad to see why it has such a powerful defense. A miracle doctor walked to the mutated toad and started examining it. Be careful, everyone. This matter is more severe than a few days ago. Even half-step to Dan realm creatures have appeared. The middle-aged man in military uniform spoke with a solemn expression. Now that such a horrifying creature had appeared, would there be stronger creatures? If there was, he could only invite the loudest of those sacred clans. He heaved a sigh and ordered his men to handle the corpses of the inborn experts. After which he looked to the muddy yellow river. Wuxia was also looking into the yellow river. He wasn't concerned that he had exposed his inborn spiritual weapon, Zhan Lu. If the mutated toad had not attacked Sun Lingxiu previously, Wuxia wouldn't have struck. Everyone's attention was on the inborn spiritual weapon, Zhan Lu. No one actually noticed Wuxia's strength level. Wuxia glanced at the corpse of the cadaveric toad before looking into the depths of the yellow river. The breadth of 1,000 meters was all within Wuxia's sight as he used his piercing eye. He walked to the edge of the shore and looked right down. Sun Lingxiu looked at Wuxia and came to him. Miracle Dr. Bloodman followed closely behind her. Miracle Dr. Wang, be careful. Seeing that Wuxia was about to break away from the group, the middle-aged man in military uniform reminded him. Wuxia turned to him and nodded his head. A blue and red glow flashed in his eyes as he continued looking into the river. After walking along the river bank for over 2,000 meters, he stopped in his tracks and looked in shock ahead of him. That is? Wuxia stared intensely at the middle of the river. A group of mutated creatures had gathered there. There were cadaveric mosquitoes, cadaveric leech and cadaveric ants that were half a meter in size. There were also toads that were 2 meters in size. A total of approximately 30 horrifying creatures lay there and seemed to be protecting something in the middle of the river. Chapter 345 Corpse 3. Chapter 345, Corpse 3. Wang Xian was slightly taken aback as he saw something in the middle of the Yellow River. He pondered hard. Those terrifying creatures were far more domineering than those mutated beings they had met just now. The 1-meter cadaveric toad just now possessed the strength of half-step to Dan realm. Yet, the 2-meter cadaveric toad before him now had already hit Dan realm. 2 meters in size with faint grayish aura circling around its mustard body, exhibiting domineering demeanor. The rest of the cadaveric ants around were also giving off the same domineering vibe. They quietly lay in a circle. More than a score of level 11 appalling creatures are keeping guard over something in the middle. What's that? Wang Xian was stunned as he looked around. Some of the low-level cadaveric ants and cadaveric toads were loitering around without a mind of their own. Just then, he saw cadaveric leeches and cadaveric mosquitoes rapidly swimming towards the opening of the Yellow River. There were approximately 20 to 30 of them, all looking bloated as they swam towards the cadaveric ants and cadaveric mosquitoes. Croak. They spat out traces of thick and crimson blood that flowed towards the center location. This is? Wang Xian stared with his eyes wide open, looking shocked. They were feeding. Those creatures were feeding on the blood they sucked up from the thing in the center. Is that the terrifying existence? Is it nursing itself? With the fresh blood from other living beings? Wang Xian was amazed. If he guessed correctly, this creature was simply too scary as it could produce numbers of level 11 creatures even when it was injured. Miracle Dr. Wang, did you make any discoveries? At the same time, there were dozens of people approaching from behind, asking him with smiling faces. Yanxi was right in the middle, accompanied by some miracle doctors and inborn experts. No. Wang Xian shook his head. He did not reveal to them what he saw as he knew this bunch of people was not good enough to deal with these appalling creatures. The water in the Yellow River is not contaminated at all. According to what we found out, these creatures should be coming from within the river. As Yanxi spoke, he cast a glance towards the Yellow River by the side. But the water is too murky. My green snake got devoured after entering it. It's too quiet over here without any life forms. Yes, there are no life forms here. Not a single fish in such a huge river bank, another miracle doctor exclaimed. What is the military army going to do with this place? Asked Wang Xian to Yanxi with some curiosity. They'll kill all the mutated creatures on the grassland before cordoning off the entire riverbank. As Yanxi answered, he looked over in another direction where armed soldiers were rushing in. The group of inborn experts followed the soldiers around, helping them to eliminate those mutated creatures. Wang Xian looked over as they combed the area inch by inch, wiping out all the mutated creatures. Then they proceeded to search the Yellow River. However, it was not easy due to the murkiness of the water. Most importantly, they would sound off those group of terrifying creatures if they ventured into the river. It would be a severe loss until then. Wang Xian frowned slightly as the group of people began searching along the riverbank. Just before the sun was setting, the group finished walking around the tributary. Wang Xian had a better idea about the creatures within the river. I wonder if you have any findings? The middle-aged man in military uniform asked all the miracle doctors at night. According to our understanding, the mutated ants have evolved with special organs that allow them to swim freely in the water. The source of the problem is almost certainly coming from the Yellow River. The group of miracle doctors shook their heads as not much information had been obtained. The middle-aged man in military uniform knit his eyebrows slightly and made a decision. Tomorrow we'll check the Yellow River. After which, everyone will receive a handsome reward for it. Miracle doctors and inborn experts nodded their heads. Everyone witnessed how dangerous it was at the tributary of the Yellow River, especially when the half-step to Dan realm creature slew an inborn expert. Without remuneration, many inborn experts would not want to risk their lives. After dinner, everyone went back to their tents for a rest. Wang Xian stood outside of his own tent and gazed in the direction of the Yellow River. Thoughts were flying around in his head. There were no stars nor moon in the sky. The weather was somber and rain was expected tomorrow. At 12 midnight, a figure disappeared from the temporary base. It flitted like a phantom towards the tributary of the Yellow River. No one noticed that figure even though experts were all around. Let's check it out. Wang Xian decided to explore the Yellow River. He'd had his apprehensions in the day, and therefore did not rise above the Yellow River in the air. With a swift move, he flew 1,000 meters high and looked down at the river. This is? His vision from piercing eyes was blocked by a layer of dark energy. In the air, Wang Xian had a slightly different expression from before as he fixed his eyes on something below. The grayish energy was similar to the water in the Yellow River, blocking his piercing eyes' vision in the air. However, those level 11 mutated creatures were seen clearly in the surroundings. There are more than a score of level 11 creatures. Unless I turn into a dragon, I won't be a match to them. With some hesitation, Wang Xian made a quick move and dived into the Yellow River. Splash! When Wang Xian entered the water, there were no water ripples at all. With a thought, he allowed the murky water stream to encompass him completely. With a swift movement, Wang Xian approached that location. 1,000 meters, 500 meters, 100 meters. Soon, Wang Xian was 50 meters away from the mutated creatures. Looking ahead, Wang Xian stared with eyes agape. A 3-meter human-like being was quietly lying in the middle among the mutated creatures. His body was giving off a disorderly vibe, but the energy it possessed trembled Wang Xian. Blood, suppression from the blood. Wang Xian was staring with his eyes wide. The being that was lying without a sound in the water seemed to be suppressing Wang Xian. Wang Xian may have been weak now, but it was horrifying to find something that could suppress his divine dragon's bloodline. The bloodline of this being is not any inferior to mine. Perhaps it's also a supreme bloodline. It was an eye-opener to Wang Xian as there were less than 5 bloodlines that could be on par with that of the divine dragon. Before his eyes now he had met one on earth. He has no breath, but his blood is still alive. He has a chance of resurrecting. Wang Xian recalled that if he mastered the 7th divine dragon transformation, he could be revived with a drop of blood. Terrifying. Chapter 346 Ancient God Kuan Breeder. Chapter 346 Ancient God Kuan Breeder. The lingering will of the blood in the corpse is actually able to control the surrounding creatures instinctively. In this process, it mutates the surrounding creatures to protect itself. At the same time, it is absorbing the fresh blood of these creatures to revive itself. What a horrifying ability. Wang Xian couldn't believe what he was seeing. He stared blankly at the corpse and his expression was changing violently. There are lots of living creatures in the Yellow River. However, this corpse only controlled those smaller creatures like ants, mosquitoes and leeches. Why didn't it control the fish? Especially those bigger ones which are around a meter? Even till now, the biggest living creature it controlled was a toad the size of a palm. It's because. He squinted his eyes and a thought struck him. It's because this corpse is already dead. Even though there is lingering vitality in its blood, the blood does not have sufficient energy. Thus, it can only control those smaller creatures like ants and mosquitoes. Perhaps the creatures it controlled have grown stronger recently and thus it is now able to control toads. In reality, this corpse does not possess any combat capacity. It instructed some of the creatures to go search for fresh blood required for its revival while leaving behind the strongest creatures to protect itself from being discovered by other living creatures. Once it is discovered, the chances of it reviving would be close to 0. At the thought of this, Wang Xian's eyes beamed. This was an existence with a bloodline that ranked in the upper echelons throughout the universe. It was also a horrifying existence that could match a divine dragon. The corpse before Wang Xian currently was a huge trove of treasure. Wang Xian's eyes were beaming. From this corpse, he gradually emitted the might and aura of a divine dragon. Pust. Croak. At this instant, those level 11 mutated creatures that were surrounding the corpse noticed Wang Xian and stared at him immediately. Their gazes were cold without any emotions. Roar. A soft growl of the dragon emanated suddenly. Splash. A 5-colored divine dragon appeared in the Yellow River. This location was just slightly over 10 meters deep. For Wang Xian's huge body that spanned approximately 7 meters, it was just like a small pond. Croak. Buzz buzz buzz. Just as Wang Xian turned into a divine dragon, those 20-odd formidable mutated creatures charged towards Wang Xian without hesitation. These creatures couldn't feel the slightest fear or pain. They opened their mouths, revealed their sharp teeth and attempted to sink these teeth into Wang Xian. Their speed was astonishingly fast and the sharpness of their teeth was comparable to level 9 weapons. Die. Wang Xian saw 20-odd creatures charging towards him and swung his razor-sharp claws at them in response. SSSSSSSSS. Horrifying and densely packed streams of metal attribute energies instantly covered an area of over 10 meters before him. Boom boom. Horrifying clashes rang. These mutated creatures did not have any elemental attributes. However, they did have incomparably tough defenses. Unfortunately for them, they were facing Wang Xian this time. Wang Xian's current strength level could match a level 12 creature. Razor-sharp streams of metal energies fell on more than 10 creatures, leaving behind long wounds. Even the sharpness of the inborn spiritual weapon, Jianghu, couldn't match the dragon claws of Wang Xian. As the pinnacle existence in the entire universe, the toughness of the body of the divine dragon would be among the top 3. Together with their elemental attribute attacks, they remained the pinnacle of all existences in the universe. Divine Dragon Tail Whip. Wang Xian controlled his tail and swept towards the mutated creatures. Boom boom. Sounds of explosions propagated throughout the surrounding area spanning 10 kilometers. What's that sound? What's that sound? I faintly heard a roar. Is there any explosion in the vicinity? At the temporary base 4 kilometers away from the Yellow River, the experts and miracle doctors walked out of the tent and exclaimed in shock. Croak croak croak. Buzz buzz buzz. SSSSSSSSS. At this instant, a deafening sound that sent chills down their spines rang loudly. Everyone could hear it clearly. What is that sound? It must be from the mutated creatures. The deep croak was from the mutated toad. However, it's more terrifying than the one we heard in the day. The other sounds were from the mutated mosquitoes and leeches. Oh gosh, what happened? Hearing the deafening and rapid cries of these creatures, the group of inborn experts was startled. Ka. At this moment, all the lights in the temporary base lit up, illuminating the surroundings and turning it as bright as the day. The soldiers walked out of their tents and the middle-aged man in military uniform leapt onto biggest tent and stared in the direction of the Yellow River. The group of inborn experts exchanged glances before levitating into the air and looking in the direction of the Yellow River. Boom. At this instant, they heard a loud explosion that resembled something smashing onto the surface of the river. Roar. A frightening roar erupted once again. Looking from afar, they could vaguely see a huge tail sweeping forward. What a terrifying aura. I could even feel the threat of death from this distance. What's happening at the Yellow River to cause such horrifying explosions? Moreover, what kind of creature is making that frightening roar? The group of inborn experts widened their eyes as they looked in the direction of the Yellow River in shock. Feeling the dominating powers, their hearts were filled with horror. There is a powerful creature fighting there. It's so strong that it appears unbelievable. The middle-aged man in military uniform stared in that direction and his body was shivering a little in awe. The cries of the mutated creatures and the mighty roar of the powerful existence had both frightened the group. They were no match for the creatures in the Yellow River. Fight. The crowd swallowed their saliva. It was especially so for those who had not reached the inborn realm. Every sound that came from there filled them with horror. They were certain that if they were any closer, they couldn't even stand. To them, the creatures there were equivalent to gods and demons. Could it be that the creature that caused the mutation is fighting other living creatures? The surrounding crowd conjectured. At this very moment, Wang Xian, who was in the Yellow River, released a green dragon ball from his mouth. The surrounding seagrass grew rapidly to the thickness of a human's arm with thorns. Subsequently, these seagrasses wrapped towards all the mutated creatures. Wang Xian extended his dragon claws and gripped the level 11 cadaveric toad tightly. Bam! The cadaveric toad was squashed into a heap of flesh instantly. Despite having an incredible defense, it was still killed instantly. Around Wang Xian, the mutated creatures were all trapped by the thorny seagrasses. The creatures struggled vigorously and were starting to break out of the hold of these seagrasses. Just a group of meager level 11 creatures. Wang Xian looked up and opened his mouth widely as the river waters retreated quickly from Wang Xian. Lava-like flames shrouded towards and covered these mutated creatures. Chapter 347, Ancient God Kuan Breeder, 2. Chapter 347, Ancient God Kuan Breeder, 2. Boom boom boom. As the flames ascended, they lit up the areas above. The sky above the Yellow River was now covered in flames as though it was raging in a firestorm. It was clearly visible even to those situated more than a dozen kilometers away. Within the temporary base, the crowd of experts looked on in shock at the burning flames. The monstrous fire resembled those started by fallen meteorites which crashed into Earth. Despite being several kilometers away, they could still feel a surge of heat waves coming at them. Under the lights of the flames, they could somewhat make out a mammoth figure as it flashed past. What was that? A voice asked. These destructive flames are so terrifying. Should they land on us, they're more than enough to melt our bodies directly. Another said, shivering. What exactly is that battling creature? How is it so powerful? Since when did such a menacing creature exist within the Yellow River? The third questioned. Dumbfounded, the crowd of inborn experts looked on with heavy hearts. Needless to say, the rest who had yet to attain the inborn realm status were overwhelmed by more shock, as their legs nearly turned to jelly. Everyone, let's take a look over there, the middle-aged man in military uniform said in hesitation as he surveyed the crowd, while his face twitched with mixed emotions. This, the inborn experts replied with flickering eyes. Given our combat abilities, we would be lucky if that powerful creature ignores us as we approach. But what if it attacks us? An inborn expert trailed off in a low tone. Even though he had left his sentence hanging, his intentions were already clear. Everyone here knows the creature over there. It's not a little tamed animal. Aren't we courting doom by going over? Another inborn expert asked blatantly. To ask them over for viewing right now? How could that possibly be? They were never going over even if one threatened to kill them. For such risky behavior, no amount would convince them to go over. Meanwhile, the young militant stood at a side, taking everything in silently as his face turned glum. He dared not to risk it. Each of their defensive powers is insane. Wang Xian exclaimed in shock. He was in the Yellow River facing more than a dozen creatures. In spite of their now charred bodies, they continued to eye Wang Xian emotionlessly. Their defensive powers were exceptional, even in the face of Wang Xian whose combat abilities were a level higher. Slaying them would require use of the dragon claws, and even then this would remain a difficult task. You beast! How dare you stop me? Wang Xian snapped. In a split second, Wang Xian transformed into a dragon covered in a body of gold. A golden dragon of the metal element was most adept at killing. Kill? Wang Xian shouted as he charged ahead, and lunged onto the creatures which feared no death. Two enormous dragon claws swung forward and tore mercilessly. Zap, zap, zap. In the air were sounds of tearing made by metallic materials. Within a radius of 500 meters, bouts of metallic energy surged through the region and penetrated through all creatures standing in its path. Having been seriously injured previously, the dozen or so mutated creatures eventually disintegrated into pieces, and fell into the river. Phew! That was troublesome. Wang Xian panted. He looked at the dismembered body parts which drifted amidst the waters, before turning his dragon head towards the center of the river. He stared coolly at the corpse which measured up to 3 meters. While it had a human form, its body was entirely mustard in color, coupled with a grisly facial appearance. As opposed to humans, it had neither a nose nor a mouth, although it also possessed a pair of eyes and ears. On the top of its head, there were 2 relatively short horns the color of mustard. Wang Xian did not approach it, nor did he want to do it so flippantly. After all, it was a terrifying creature, hence caution must be exercised at all times. The corpse lay silently in the water, as though it was in an individual space of its own. A spot on its thigh which was missing some flesh and blood revealed the ivory bones within. Ancient God Kuan breeder, level unknown. Unable to extract dragon energy. The ancient God Kuan breeder? Wang Xian said, stunned after reading the message. His face filled with shock. The ancient God Kuan breeder. To think, it's the ancient God Kuan breeder. Wang Xian gasped with his mouth gaping open as his eyes flooded with bloodthirst. This was a murderous intent which stemmed from his bloodline. Umph. Wang Xian snorted with a heavy look. He calmed himself down the soonest he could, while information on the ancient God Kuan breeder appeared in his head. As the divine dragon transformation read, it was the only pinnacle existence to have ever been recorded, and also the only arch-nemesis of the divine dragon to have ever existed. That said, based on the records in the divine dragon transformation, the ancient God Kuan breeders were already extinct. Little did he expect to meet one in person. The ancient god Kuan breeder, as the name suggests, was a breeder of Kuns. Hence these so-called Kuan breeders were also the owners of Kuns, giant monsters of the galaxy. Whereas the Kuan, also known as Kuan Garuda, were creatures whose existence was almost on par with that of a divine dragon. It was a fish in the sea but a bird on land and in the air. The physical size of a Kuan could stretch up to thousands of kilometers, making it one of the largest creatures to exist under the sky. As a bird, the combat abilities of a Kuan were more powerful than that of a golden-winged Suparnan, making it a rare hegemon both on land and underwater. A creature as domineering as the Kuan, which managed to attain status as a pinnacle, had achieved this due to neither its bloodline nor physical constitution. Its existence was, in fact, thanks to the breeding efforts of one particular clan. That is, the Ancient God clan, otherwise known as the Ancient God Kuan breeders. These Ancient God Kuan breeders reared Kuns by capturing existences of the top bloodlines with the best physical constitutions within the galaxy, and feeding them to the Kuns thereafter. Amongst the main targets of these Ancient God Kuan breeders were weaker and smaller divine dragons, which were hunted and killed. Based on records in the divine dragon transformation, these Ancient God Kuan breeders were annihilated after they offended many top-class clans and sects for having killed their descendants. Their existence was a perverse one which was feared and scorned by all. Wang Xian's face contorted along with his swirling emotions as he looked at the corpse of the Ancient God Kuan breeder. He reverted to his human form before walking slowly over to the corpse. With a body size stretching up to 3 meters, this Ancient God Kuan breeder was not a huge one. Void of any signs of life, the corpse now crumbled in decay, as though it had been dead for thousands of years. As Wang Xian looked at the corpse, he began to show signs of hesitation. This corpse must not be left on its own. These Ancient God Kuan breeders are a top-class existence which even Wang Xian was unable to contain. He did not know if it would bode well or if it would mean evil should this Ancient God Kuan breeder manage to regain consciousness. It would be too late for regrets for him, should this fellow kill him and feed him to the Kuns, upon seeing that he was a purebred divine dragon. Destroy. Wang Xian decided without the slightest hesitation. As he spoke, a dragon ball appeared in his hand, which he then placed gently on top of the corpse. The corpse was soon engulfed in flames. However, Wang Xian was startled with a burdened look. Despite the flames raging from the dragon ball, the corpse of the Ancient God Kuan breeder did not seem the least bit affected. Flames from a level 10 Dragon Ball had not done the least bit of damage to this corpse. To think a corpse which has been long dead can still be this menacing. Wang Xian shrieked in astonishment. With a sudden thought, he placed his arm on the area where the heart of the corpse lay beneath. It's the bloodline. His body is still flowing with remnants of their clan's bloodline. I need to obtain it so that this Ancient God Kuan breeder can never come back to life, Wang Xian analyzed. Zoom. Through Wang Xian's telepathic sensing he detected the scarlet fluid the size of fingernails, which was located in the heart of the corpse. Chapter 348, National Treasury. Chapter 348, National Treasury. Come out. As Wang Xian waved his arm, streams of dense dragon energy flowed towards the heart of Ancient God Kuan breeder and surrounded the drop of blood. A drop of fiery red was pulled out of the corpse. The drop of blood was moving vigorously as if it was in fear and horror. Wang Xian looked at the small drop of blood from the Ancient God Kuan breeder. This could very well be the last of its kind. There is still the presence of intelligence in the blood. Are these the memories of this corpse? Wang Xian looked at the shimmering drop of blood. He moved his hand and ejected dragon energy to erase the lingering spirit in it. Arg. This is the only bloodline of the ancient god that remains. I'm not convinced. Our clan shall live on for eternity. A wretched voice rang in Wang Xian's mind suddenly. He was stunned. How terrifying. Wang Xian sighed as he looked at this droplet of blood. Rumble. At this instant, the corpse beside him started cracking and was eventually reduced to ashes. Essence soul of the ancient god breeder? Level? Extraction of dragon energy not possible. Essence soul? When Wang Xian received information about this drop of blood, he was taken aback. Essence soul? An essence soul is a combination of the essence blood and the soul. In other words, a thought struck Wang Xian suddenly and he was thrilled. Inheritance. This is an inheritance. Wang Xian's body couldn't help but tremble with excitement. This was the inheritance of the ancient god Kuan breeder. If one was to absorb this drop of blood, one would have a high chance of becoming a member of the ancient gods and the last ancient god Kuan breeder in the entire universe. It's no surprise that the last words of the voice were, "Our clan shall live on forever." So this explains it. Wang Xian mumbled to himself as he was filled with anticipation and excitement. Consuming this essence soul will allow one to inherit the bloodline of the ancient god Kuan breeder and become a member of the ancient gods. It's a shame that I already have the bloodline of the divine dragon and hence cannot consume it. I can give this. Wang Xian started considering who he should give this to. This was a priceless item. Therefore he would only give it to his closest kin or friends or his subordinates like the Dragonians. Let's leave this place first. Wang Xian put the essence soul away and moved like a phantom towards the temporary base. Why is everyone gathered here? From afar, Wang Xian noticed that the temporary base was brightly illuminated. All the experts were either standing on top of the tents or levitating in the air. Wang Xian made a detour and appeared beside Sun Lingxiu. Why is everyone gathered here? What are they looking out for? Wang Xian asked Sun Lingxiu with a bright smile. No one dares to head in that direction. The tremors from the battles ahead were too shocking. Xiao Xian, you are really incredible. Have you settled everything? She asked. Sun Lingxiu also possessed the divine dragon's bloodline currently and practiced the light divine dragon transformation. She knew that Wang Xian had been involved in the battle previously. It's settled. I believe we should be able to head back tomorrow. Wang Xian smiled and looked around him. The crowd of experts gathered to discuss the battle ahead of them. Even though the commotion had died down, no one dared to head over. Although this happened at midnight, no one was feeling sleepy. They had gathered and were discussing the situation fervently. On the other hand, Wang Xian was very relaxed and wasn't tense like the others. He returned to his room to take his rest. On the next morning, Wang Xian learned that the middle-aged man in military uniform had led some soldiers to recce around the Yellow River in the wee hours of the day. In the end, he brought back the good news that all the mutated creatures had vanished, including those that might be hiding within the Yellow River. They found the corpses of some mutated creatures in the river. This shocked everyone in the base, but they were relieved at the same time. The crowd recalled the horrifying battle that had occurred at midnight. Perhaps other creatures had killed those mutated creatures or chased them away. Miracle Dr. Sun, this is your reward. Miracle Dr. Bloodman and Miracle Dr. Wang, thank you for your assistance in this mission. Both of you will get entry into the National Treasury. At noon, a soldier entered the tent and spoke to them. Thank you. Sun Lingxiu received a jade box and smiled. As for Miracle Dr. Bloodman, he stood by the side and laughed out of ecstasy. The soldier handed Wang Xian a gold medal and his personal information was recorded on it. With this medal, he would be able to enter the National Treasury to pick an item of his liking. Master, this item is my tribute to you. Miracle Dr. Bloodman received the gold medal and handed it over to Sun Lingxiu respectfully. Xiao Xian, you can have it. Sun Lingxiu received the gold medal and gave it to Wang Xian. You can hold it now. When the time arrives, we can enter the National Treasury together. There might be something you need in there. Wang Xian looked at her and said with a bright smile. Oh, all right. Let's enter the place together. Sun Lingxiu smiled radiantly as she played with her hair. Wang Xian was taken aback slightly, smiling as he left the tent. Sun Lingxiu looked at Wang Xian with adoration and respect. Subsequently, she followed behind Wang Xian. Miracle Dr. Bloodman and Miracle Dr. Wang, let me get my guys to bring you to the National Treasury. When the trio walked out of the tents, the middle-aged man in military uniform walked over with a relieved smile. Although the incident of the Yellow River had ended abruptly, he was relieved. All right, replied Wang Xian with a nod. National Treasury. You could at least get an inborn spiritual weapon in it. Only Miracle Dr. Wang and Miracle Dr. Bloodman are allowed to enter the National Treasury. This mission must have been a great deal for them. Miracle Doctor already has an inborn spiritual weapon. If he gets another, he would have two. This is already comparable to a sacred sect. Miracle Dr. Bloodman is clearly the servant of the Miracle Doctor Holy Goddess and she has an ambiguous relationship with Miracle Dr. Wang. After their trip to the National Treasury, they will have 3 inborn spiritual weapons. Oh gosh. The crowd heard the conversation between the middle-aged man in military uniform and Wang Xian's group. They couldn't help but be envious of Wang Xian and Miracle Dr. Bloodman. Damn rascal. A short distance away, Bian Yaoquan clenched his fist tightly. The rights to enter the treasury would have been his. However, it was snatched away by that rascal. He stared at the trio, including Sun Lingxiu, with a vengeance. He had noted down his hatred in his mind. That woman was the first who dared to chide him and chase him away. They are going to have 3 inborn spiritual weapons among them. Dense murderous intent gleamed in Bian Yaoquan's eyes. He pulled a long face and turned to the poison duo beside him. The poison duo shifted their attention from Wang Xian and saw the expression of their young master. They immediately understood his intentions. Their group is rather strong. We will need at least 6 inborn experts to be safe. The poison duo commented coldly after pondering. Young master, should we ask our men from the sect? Asked old Du with a sinister expression. Our guys from the sect? No, this won't do. I must definitely achieve something to show my parents for this training trip. Bian Yaoquan sank into deep thought. As he turned and looked across his surroundings, he noticed many other experts staring greedily at Wang Xian and his group. A thought struck him immediately. Chapter 349, 2 Treasures. Chapter 349, 2 Treasures. There's more than one eyeing the treasures which he has on hand. Bian Yaoquan jeered as he swept his gaze across coldly. The elders looked over with hesitation. How do we allocate the treasures with the outsiders? They asked. We'll give them enough elixir pills after we inform them prior. I believe they'll agree to it. Bian Yaoquan replied. As he spoke, he lifted his head slightly before glaring at Wang Xian and Sun Lingxiu with bloodthirst in his eyes. I want that fellow dead. I want that bitch pleading for mercy while kneeling between my legs. He snapped with a grimace. As they looked at Bian Yaoquan, the poison duo hesitated briefly as their hearts stirred, before nodding in agreement. Leave this matter to us, the poison duo replied. As they spoke, they looked across at the crowd before making their way towards them. The National Treasury was located in Shangjing. Wang Xian and the rest flew over to Shangjing in the military helicopter, and arrived at the military airport by evening. Please follow me, a stern drill instructor said to them while he led the way. The trio boarded a military jeep with the drill instructor, and together they drove towards the palace in Shangjing. Upon arrival at the main entrance of the palace, 2 gatekeepers handed 4 eye masks to the quartet. Put on the eye masks, they ordered. Including the drill instructor who had fetched them over, everyone complied. Upon receiving the eye masks, Wang Xian and group tied them over their eyes, and began to make their way inside under the directions of 2 soldiers. Eye masks were useless on Wang Xian. They kept walking inwards and made countless turns, and after many rounds of checks conducted by numerous personnel, the group finally arrived at their last location within the palace. Over here was a small mountain. Constant roars could be heard from the small mountain. In front of the mountain was a boulder which Wang Xian could clearly see split open, opening up to a staircase which descended to the underground. How stringent, Wang Xian exclaimed. The National Treasury was after all situated in Shangjing, which was backed by the strongest military manpower. Furthermore, it was located within the palace. It was literally impossible for anyone to attempt to trespass. Remove the eye masks and hand them to me, a voice could be heard from beneath them. As Wang Xian and the rest followed suit, they looked down the stairs. A scholarly and poised elder dressed in tang suit welcomed Wang Xian and the rest with a gentle smile. You've got only 2 gold medallions, so you can only choose 2 pieces of treasures, the elder explained. To which, he continued, follow me. Wang Xian and the rest nodded, and together they entered with curiosity. Is there anything which you have in mind? The elder asked amiably as he led the way ahead. Elder, are there any alchemy furnaces in the National Treasury? Wang Xian asked straightforwardly. His main purpose this time was to get into the National Treasury to lay hands on one. An alchemy furnace? Young man, are you an alchemist? The elder asked out of curiosity, while he paused briefly and turned his head over to face Wang Xian. Yes, Wang Xian answered with a nod. How regretful we've run out of alchemy furnaces. The last one's been taken by the medical saint sect. The elder explained as he shook his head lightly. Alchemy furnaces are few to begin with. There were previously 3 in the National Treasury, but they have since been taken by the medical saint sect and the medical tripod mountain sect, the elder continued. All taken? Wang Xian quizzed. Not exactly taken. But traded in exchange using elixir pills, ha. The elder laughed. If there's anything else you have in mind, I can bring you over directly. That'll speed things up," he added. Wang Xian furrowed his brows. To think there were no alchemy furnaces at the National Treasury. The secret manual of the art of cultivation, elixir pill recipes, weapons, spiritual stones, and cash, the elder listed. With a laugh he continued, "This gold medallion is worth $20 billion. Ah, that's 2,000 spiritual stones. We'll look around ourselves?" Wang Xian acknowledged with a nod. "Sure, but no browsing of the secret elixir pill recipes. As for the rest, help yourselves," the elder said before they went down the last flight of stairs and arrived at a huge space. Wang Xian and group were shocked by the sight before them. Oh my, this place is a gold mountain," the miracle Dr. Bloodman gasped as he peered inside with glowing eyes. Up ahead was a massive area measuring a radius of 2 kilometers. It held objects of all sorts, where each and every one of them shone in shimmering light. "Not that many, Paresi. Many of our nation's treasures have been snatched by some of the international forces." The elder shook his head with a tinge of dismay in his eyes. "True. 30 years ago, major international forces treated this place as a treasure trove. They went on a mad spree looting all sorts of valuable resources from here. Spiritual medicine, weapons, relics. Had it not been for the emergence of the guardian divine beasts." TSK. The miracle Dr. Bloodman said dryly, clearly aware of some of the history. "The guardian divine beasts?" Wang Xian asked. "That's a nation-guarding divine beast," the elder emphasized as he stuck his chest out, beaming with a sense of pride. "The world's most formidable, the nation-guarding divine beast," the miracle Dr. Bloodman called out, slightly spooked as he recalled the legends. "The nation-guarding divine beasts," Wang Xian uttered under his breath, but did not question further as he continued to survey the surroundings. "The secret manual of the art of cultivation's over there, while this is the weaponry area. The elixir-related items are over here along with some miscellaneous pieces. Take your pick over here," the elder said to them in a bid to digress from the earlier topic. Wang Xian nodded in acknowledgement and stepped forward. As he swept his gaze across, several messages popped up continually in his head. Space-shattering sword, level 9. Giant watchtower sword, level 10. Huyang blade, level 8. Weapons of varied levels were hanging within a crate, along with inborn spiritual weapons of level 8 to 9. "It's no doubt the National Treasury, there are so many treasures in here," Wang Xian exclaimed. He was uninterested in the weapons, and harbored few intentions with the secret manual of the art of cultivation. Thus he made his way over to the area of elixir-related items. There were no elixir pills in the area, but only elixir pill recipes and manuals on the art of refining elixir pills. As Wang Xian scanned past, he realized that the area held less elixir pill recipes than Sui Huang's, while he knew many of the ones here. "Ah, a flame bead," Wang Xian called out. He was on his way out of a Messier storage area, when he caught sight of the object which was encased in a crystal. Barraging blaze ball, level 10. A level 10 flame bead, Wang Xian said in excitement. His current Dragon Ball had peaked at level 10. It would take him several years of cultivation before it could upgrade to level 11. Yet, by absorbing this barraging blaze bead, his Dragon Ball would ascend to level 11 immediately. Once the Dragon Ball reached level 11, it could transform into an Inferno Divine Dragon, killing inborn experts and dealing with Dan Realm experts with ease. "I'm taking this flame bead," Wang Xian decided. Stretching out his hand, he grabbed onto the flame bead. "One more item to go," the elder said casually as he stood at his side. The flame bead was an extremely precious treasure. When acquired, it could help an inborn expert of the fire element to double their combat abilities. Wang Xian nodded as he glanced ahead at the voluminous objects. Strange-looking stones, shimmering bangles, rings, bizarre robot puppets, and wares of all sorts. A look across and one could see many items with powers of level 7 to 8, even up to level 9. Especially the strange-looking human stone sculpture, which was, in fact, a level 9 ancient war marionette. Zing zing. Just then, an unexplained force of attraction came surging over, and Wang Xian felt something inside of him tugging. He looked over, slightly taken aback. Chapter 350 Level 11. Chapter 350, Level 11. Wang. Wang Xian was shocked as he stared at the branch which had only been the size of an arm previously. This is? In my body? Wang Xian felt the desire within his body and an object flashed in his mind. This was something which he had nearly forgotten. It was the progenitor tree, the object that was extracted from the stone-bedding rock from Jade Nation. The ancestor of all wood, the progenitor tree. When the progenitor tree was first absorbed into his body, Wang Xian had tirelessly practiced for an entire month to provide the azure dragon energy for it to absorb. However, it didn't show any signs of movements after taking root within his body. It did not bring him any major benefits or any changes. All it did was remain silently in his body. But now, the progenitor tree was reacting rigorously and desired to absorb that soul-returning branch. Wang Xian recalled seeing records of the soul-returning tree in an ancient book. The soul-returning tree was a magical thing. If one was to latch a small part of his soul with the soul-returning tree, the person's soul would be absorbed by it when he died. After absorbing the soul, the tree would bear the soul fruit. Through a special method, one could be revived. This was a divine tree with unimaginable powers that was recorded in the mythology. He didn't expect he would find a branch of the soul-returning tree. However, this branch has almost lost all its vitality. Furthermore, this is just a level 9 item and is a far cry from other inborn spiritual weapons. Wang Xian was having second thoughts. He was not sure about the truthfulness of the records on the soul-returning tree. Furthermore, it wouldn't be a wise choice to get a level 9 item when there were so many inborn spiritual objects around. Just as Wang Xian was hesitating, the desire from the progenitor tree within his body grew even stronger. Let's hope that the progenitor tree would bring better changes after absorbing this branch. Otherwise, I would have made a dumb decision. Wang Xian felt a little gloomy. He picked up the soul-returning branch and said, "I'll be getting this." The old man was a little surprised to see Wang Xian pick up a wretched branch. Although that branch wasn't ordinary, it was at most a level 8 or 9 item based on his experience. It was still a far cry from an inborn spiritual object. Nonetheless, he wouldn't mind Wang Xian choosing a wretched branch. "You can't reverse your decision once you have chosen," said the old man plainly with a gentle smile. "Naturally," replied Wang Xian as he nodded his head. Subsequently, he looked at the old man and asked, "I heard that Medical Saint Sect and Medical Tripod Mountain Sect could exchange items here with elixir pills. Is this still allowed now?" "Exchange? That will depend on the elixir pills you are offering and the item you would like to get. If we have the need, we could do the exchange." The old man smiled and replied, "I'd like to get some spiritual stones." Wang Xian replied instantly. At this point, Wang Xian had 5,000 spiritual stones. This included spiritual stones gathered by the Dragonians and those from the floating island. He was still short 5,000 to have enough to build the Dragon Palace. Besides that, he had gathered close to 60% of all other resources required. As long as he had enough spiritual stones, the construction of the Dragon Palace was in sight. "If it is just spiritual stones, we can purchase your elixir pills based on the market rates," the old man replied. "All right. For level 1 elixir pills, I have 150 chi accumulation pills and 30 body strengthening pills. For level 2 elixir pills, I have 20 bone grinding pills and 15 channel nourishing pills. For level 3 elixir pills, I have 20 soul enhancement pills." Wang Xian took out some pills of each type as he explained to the old man. "Wow, so much." The old man gasped in shock. The old man beamed and started counting the value of these elixir pills silently. 2,000 spiritual stones. "We can offer you 2,000 spiritual stones. If you want more, this deal is off." 2,000 spiritual stones. Wang Xian nodded his head slightly and continued, "These pills are in Rivertown currently? How shall we do the trade?" "I will give you a number later. You can call this number when you are back in Rivertown. Someone will contact you about the details for the trade," the elderly man said with a big smile. "All right," Wang Xian replied with a nod. After exiting the National Treasury, Wang Xian and Miracle Dr. Bloodman put on the eye masks again as they walked out. Night had fallen and the moon hung high up in the skies when they left the palace. Wang Xian looked at the time and realized it was already past 9 p.m. However, as a city that never sleeps, Shangjing was still well lit. The skyscrapers around and the shops were still operating. Wang Xian looked at Sun Lingxiu and asked, "What would you like to eat?" "I would like some authentic roasted duck of Shangjing. Speaking of which, this is my first time in Shangjing." Sun Lingxiu looked around her before turning towards Wang Xian and replying with a beautiful smile. "This is just my second time here. Let's go have some roasted duck," exclaimed Wang Xian. Subsequently, they called for a hired car to bring them to the famous roasted duck restaurant. Miracle Dr. Bloodman saw his master with Wang Xian. Therefore, he pretended to be invisible and followed behind them silently. At the same time, he was observing this prosperous city inquisitively. After dinner, the trio found a hotel to rest at before heading back to River Town the next day. In the hotel, Wang Xian took out the barraging blaze ball and soul returning branch. "Devour." He spat out the dragon ball and watched it slowly devour the barraging blaze ball. The dragon ball was the size of an egg but emitted a scorching high temperature. Wang Xian hurriedly isolated the flames by sending in streams of dragon energy before continuing his observation solemnly. The dragon ball had now devoured the lava ball, body refining spiritual flame ball and the barraging blaze ball. The three different spiritual flame balls each had their own unique effects. The lava ball was dense and highly penetrative, the body refining spiritual flame ball was gentle, and the barraging blaze ball was violent. On the dragon ball, a faint but vivid image of an inferno divine dragon materialized and appeared savage. Roar. When the dragon fully absorbed the barraging blaze ball, faint cries of a dragon emanated from it. The dragon ball started rotating slowly. Dragon Ball, Level 11. Witnessing the evolution of the Dragon Ball, Wang Xian was ecstatic. A Level 11 Inferno Dragon Ball could exhibit the power of a Dan Realm expert under his control. With the support from the Inferno Divine Dragon and while he was in his human form, there would be few Dan Realm experts who could match him. Wang Xian then turned his attention to the soul returning branch. He picked it up and started to inspect it. Besides the mysterious energy in it, the branch was no different from any other withered branches. Wang Xian's eyebrows knitted together. Dense streams of azure dragon energy started to flow into the branch. Wang. At this moment, the branch seemed to be activated and started to emit a grayish glow. Wang. Suddenly, Wang Xian felt as though the progenitor tree had extended out a needle-thin extension that penetrated through his body and into contact with the soul-returning branch. To his astonishment, the soul-returning branch was pulled into his body. A sapling the size of an index finger was wiggling in Wang Xian's body. Subsequently, the first branch grew out of the sapling. The branch was different from the jade-green progenitor tree. This branch was grayish and it was emitting a grayish glow. It looked incomparably mysterious. Wang Xian was astonished as he stared at the progenitor tree in his body. What is this damn thing? Other than growing a branch, there are no other changes after absorbing the soul-returning branch. Chapter 351 Ambush. Chapter 351 Ambush. Wang Xian assessed the progenitor tree in his body with a heavy look. Yet, he had neither discovered the use of it, nor observed any physical changes to the tree after studying it for the day. It remained rooted and swaying within Wang Xian's body, completely indifferent about him. Forget it. If a young sapling of the progenitor tree, which is also regarded as the origin of all trees, is able to enter my body, then it should be pretty formidable. Wang Xian consoled himself. Which was also all that he could do for now as he lay on the bed to rest. At dawn, Wang Xian, Sun Lingxiu and Miracle Dr. Bloodman rushed for the airport in a rented car after having breakfast at the hotel. As the airport was located in the suburbs, there were no neighborhoods within a radius of several kilometers. "Dear guests, how many visits have you made to the Shangjing?" the middle-aged driver asked. As he spoke, he looked through the rearview mirror and smiled at Wang Xian and Sun Lingxiu while they sat behind. "Just a few," Wang Xian replied with a smile. "Oh," the driver acknowledged with glee. Just then his phone rang. "Hey old Wang, what's up?" the driver said as he answered the call. "The bridge is congested due to a traffic incident? I'm in a rush to the airport." What rotten luck." "Sure, I got it," the driver replied to the caller before he looked at Miracle Dr. Bloodman who was sitting beside him. "There's been an accident on the road at the bridge. My coworker said a muck truck has been overturned and toppled on top of a smaller car. The entire car's flattened." "How terrible," the driver informed. "For now it'll be tough to drive over. I can only take you through a shortcut." The driver continued, chatting conversationally with the Miracle Dr. Bloodman. "We're catching the morning flight at 10 a.m. So long as we don't miss it, it's fine." The Miracle Dr. Bloodman replied to the driver nonchalantly. "Relax, not to worry. I guarantee we won't be late. Besides, it's only an additional 3 to 4 kilometers of driving, the driver assured with a laugh as he accelerated. Wang Xian and Sun Lingxiu were not the least bit bothered either, as the two continued chatting softly in the back seat. Holding on to Sun Lingxiu's illuminating pearl, Wang Xian assisted in cultivating it using his dragon energy. This illuminating pearl was a mere level 9, which was a tad too low given Sun Lingxiu's powers. But, with her physical constitution and light divine dragon transformation, it would not be long before she could upgrade this illuminating pearl to level 10. This illuminating pearl would make a piece of pretty good jewelry. Sun Lingxiu joked gleefully as she placed it on her neck and gestured to Wang Xian. That's because you're pretty? Wang Xian smiled back. Sun Lingxiu blushed. Screech. Apologies. Sorry, I need to go relieve myself. The driver apologized as he stopped the car. The car was parked along a narrow pathway, where remnants of demolished houses remained on its sides. There was not a soul around. Excusing himself briefly, the driver got out of the car before running to the back, as if it was really urgent. Wang Xian and others remained unbothered. Pit-pat, pit-pat. Suddenly at that moment, a sound came from underneath the car. Oh no! The miracle Dr. Bloodman shouted with a contorted expression upon hearing the noise. Wang Xian and Sun Lingxiu were taken by surprise. Boom. In the next moment, they felt a powerful wave of energy surging from beneath the car towards them. With a shudder on his face, Wang Xian picked Sun Lingxiu up and dodged immediately, as the earth dragon energy surrounded the air with the color of custard. However, Miracle Dr. Bloodman was not as lucky. Boom boom boom. As the explosions continued, the entire rental car blew into pieces. To the point where more than half of the car turned into ashes due to the blast. These terrifying explosions were more powerful than a single all-kill strike by an inborn expert. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The explosions had just ended when a gush of thick, green smog came blowing in their direction. TSK 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 TSK. In the air, the green smog was sizzling, and as droplets of liquid fell to the ground, they began to corrode the land. As the land eroded, it opened up many little holes the depth of a finger along the pathway. If a drop of the liquid was this horrifying, imagine the terror of this poisonous green smog which now covered the area of 100 meters in radius. Death was almost guaranteed if one remained within. The divine lightning column, how powerful. It's almost as deadly as the attacks by one from the Dan realm, a voice commented. Ah! Young Master Bien, we, the Shao family, have made this divine lightning column by enduring huge risks, while gathering lightning and thunder. Of course it's very formidable, another replied. The poisonous liquid from Old Dew really kills without warning. Such potent poison can kill hundreds of thousands. Even an inborn expert will surely die by coming into contact. A third voice exclaimed. Akak. One must use their brains in order to lay an ambush to kill. With so many destructive weapons, slaying 3 inborn experts would be such an easy feat. The last voice boasted. Right then, on the dilapidated buildings of houses which were soon to be demolished, several figures stood. There was a total of 7 of them. There was a young man watching emotionlessly with hands resting on his back. It was Bian Yaoquan. On his side stood the poison duo. Alongside the trio were 4 inborn experts. Amongst them was a middle-aged man with specks of lightning zapping all over his body. The second was a thin and frail old man with a dark stare. And the remaining 2 were chubby elders with striking resemblance. The group of 7 were watching the scene below with satisfied smiles. Meanwhile, the area below was covered in green smog within a 100-meter radius. The sizzling noise kept coming and the area looked like a living hell. As drops of green liquid fell onto the ground, it gave form to numerous deep narrow holes. A giant pothole was formed within a 20-meter radius due to the explosion earlier. The pothole was 5 meters deep and looked absolutely horrendous. Seems like inviting you guys over was the right choice. Bian Yaoquan smirked as he looked at the area below. Ha, why of course, the ominous and feeble-looking elder laughed with a wide grin, revealing his stained teeth. So, it's such a pity that the holy goddess should die just like this. Truly a pity? Bian Yaoquan said dryly as he stared at the clouds of green gases which loomed over the area. Ah! Young Master Bien's a true gentleman who treasures the ladies. I hope young Master Bien will not forget to pay us for this mission after. The 2 chubby elders teased as they roared in laughter. That's for sure. I Bian Yaoquan, am a man of my word. Bian Yaoquan replied conceitedly. Ah, a voice shouted. You bunch of jerks, the voice continued. Just then, a figure flew out from the explosions and poisonous smog. The miracle Dr. Bloodman was drenched in blood. As the fresh coagulated blood soaked him thoroughly, it made him look really pathetic. He flew out from the poisonous smog before falling onto the ground in excruciating pain. The cries from miracle Dr. Bloodman attracted Bian Yaoquan, who raised an eyebrow. Oh, there's a fellow who survived. Bian Yaoquan exclaimed in excitement as he looked over. Ah! He shed a few layers of skin. The poison duo added as they watched miracle Dr. Bloodman, as though they were assessing a dead body. TSK, are the other two completely dead? How upsetting. Bian Yaoquan commented. He was somewhat disappointed upon seeing the miracle Dr. Bloodman on the floor, crying in pain after flying out from the rubble. I even prepared to have some fun with them. Bian Yaoquan continued as he raised his brows in a face of discontentment. Whoever offended him shall die. But just as he ended his statement, a voice came from amidst the poisonous smog. You won't be disappointed, the voice assured. Chapter 352 Killed in 10 seconds. Chapter 352, Killed in 10 seconds. Within the poison fog an emotionless voice emanated, following which traces of light shone out from it. SSSSSSSS. The surrounding poisonous green fog was vanishing at a rapid pace. Light gradually illuminated the surroundings. What? At this point, Bian Yaoquan and the other 6 men stood on a dilapidated house. Seeing the gradually strengthening light, they were shocked. Inborn spiritual weapon, it must be a defensive type inborn spiritual object. The emaciated old man stared at the 2 figures with his gloomy eyes and said in a definitive tone. That's right. It must be defensive inborn spiritual armor or something similar. Otherwise, they would definitely not be able to avoid the explosion of the divine lightning column. The middle-aged man seconded with a definitive tone. Inborn level defensive armor. Greed gleamed in Bian Yaoquan's eyes. First it was inborn spiritual weapon Jianghu, and now an inborn level defensive armor? There must be another inborn level item with him. If I can get all of them. As Bian Yaoquan spoke, he got enthusiastic and agitated. If he had 3 inborn spiritual objects, he could kill an inborn expert despite only being at the half-step to inborn realm. If I can get 3 inborn spiritual objects, the position of the sect leader of the medical saint sect in the future will definitely be mine. Ecstasy welled up in him. He looked below him and started laughing. Ha! Great. You have not disappointed me. You have not disappointed me. It's only interesting this way. All the inborn spiritual objects you have are all mine. Miracle Doctor, Holy Goddess, I'll dote on you dearly in the future. Bian Yaoquan laughed hysterically. What gives you the courage to assassinate us here? Green poisonous fog slowly dissipated under the illumination of Sun Lingxiu's dazzling rays. Wang Xian stood up, lifted his head and stared at the 7 figures on the roof of a dilapidated house. He focused on Bian Yaoquan, who was in the middle, and stared at him with murderous eyes. If he had not reacted in time to the horrifying attack previously, Sun Lingxiu would likely have suffered grave injuries. Moreover, even he had suffered some light injuries in the previous explosion. Fixing his gaze on the 7 figures he wanted to slay, Wang Xian slowly opened up his palms. That's right. We are going to kill you. Bian Yaoquan looked down at Wang Xian from higher ground and revealed an eerie smile. He looked across at the severely injured miracle Dr. Bloodman, showed a bloodthirsty expression and shouted, You shall die today. Kill them. The inborn experts around him quickly exchanged glances. Let's attack him together. He has 3 inborn spiritual objects with him. The poison duo said to the other 4 men. Even if he has 3 inborn spiritual objects, he will still die by the hands of the 6 of us. The youngest miracle doctor and a powerful alchemist. What a shame. I just love to kill geniuses. 2 identical fat old men squinted their eyes and moved in unison towards Wang Xian. Die. The other 4 inborn experts also struck at the same time. From above, they shrouded Wang Xian in their powerful inborn auras. Wang Xian lifted his head slightly and saw 6 inborn experts approaching him. Contempt was written over his face. Since you guys are interested in what I have, I guess I should show it to you guys. As he finished his words, Wang Xian opened his palm and the dragon ball that emitted violent lava-like heat slowly floated up. Spiritual flame ball. Haha, that's a good one. When Bian Yaoquan, who was on the rooftop, noticed the dragon ball in Wang Xian's palm, he was thrilled. Spiritual flame ball is highly useful in refining elixir pills. Great. I like this treasure. TSK. Wang Xian sneered upon hearing his laughter. At this moment, the two fat old men drew large axes from their backs. The axes were entirely black and looked incomparably heavy. They slashed them towards Wang Xian directly. Die. Roar. The voices of the two old men sounded. However, what they received in return was a dragon roar. A rampaging dragon roar. What? To the astonishment of the 6 inborn experts, the dragon ball turned into an inferno divine dragon that spanned close to 10 meters. In the instant the divine dragon appeared, the air in the atmosphere started becoming violent. The surroundings were filled with violent molecules. The inferno divine dragon was as real as it could get. Its surface was like lava and flames were raging furiously on it. The dragon ball had assimilated the attributes of the barraging blaze ball. Roar. The inferno divine dragon moved and swung its claws towards the two approaching fat old men. The dragon claws were 1 meter long and emanated powerful energies. The two fat old men could feel the powers of the dragon claws and turned solemn. Die. Moving almost in sync, the two old men lifted the huge axes in their hands. A layer of metal glow shrouded the giant axes, doubling their size to 2 meters. Boom. The dragon claws clashed with the axes. Ka. However, the huge 2-meter axes were easily pushed back and started breaking apart. Boom. As the inferno divine dragon exerted some strength, the giant axes started melting rapidly. The two fat old men were horrified. However, the momentum of the dragon claws didn't slow at all as they grabbed onto them. Arg. 2 pitiful cries propagated. In less than a second, all cries had stopped. What? The 4 inborn experts that were following closely behind were petrified. The double-faced heavenly axe duo had been in the inborn realm for more than 10 years. Moreover, their combination strike was widely known to be extremely powerful. Yet they were killed in an instant. Fear gripped the 4 men's hearts. Before they could react, the inferno divine dragon was already right before them. Kill! The 4 men gritted their teeth and growled. Poison duo waved their hands and balls of poison were hurled towards the inferno divine dragon directly. However, these poison balls were reduced to dust before they could even reach the inferno divine dragon. A middle-aged man filled with electric energy held a metal hammer in his hand. He smashed his hammer heavily towards the void space. Bolts of lightning fell onto the body of the inferno divine dragon. However, the attacks were still futile. This petrified the 4 inborn experts. Boom. The inferno divine dragon swayed its huge tail towards them. The horrifying dragon tail brought with it a force of over 10,000 pounds. Bam. Bam. Poison duo, who were at the forefront of the group, didn't even have the time and space to react. Their bodies were smashed towards one of the dilapidated houses by the side as though they were rubber balls. After smashing through a dozen-plus houses, they finally landed heavily on a wall. Roar. The inferno divine dragon stretched its head in a motion towards the other 2 inborn experts. The next moment, it spewed flames on them. Arg. Raging flames fell onto their bodies and the 2 inborn experts felt as though they had landed through the opening of a volcano. Their eyes were filled with desperation and fear. Looking at the young man standing before them, hatred welled up in them. The whole process lasted less than 10 seconds. 6 inborn experts were killed. Chapter 353 Boundless Seas, The Choice of Location for the Dragon Palace, 1. Chapter 353, Boundless Seas, The Choice of Location for the Dragon Palace, 1. I haven't disappointed you, have I? As the last of the screams dissipated, the inferno divine dragon circled in the air before it leaped in front of Wang Xian, reverting to its form as a dragon ball. Wang Xian stretched his hands to receive the ball before raising his head to face Bian Yaoquan, who was standing atop a dilapidated house. Eyes wide, the current Bian Yaoquan was shivering as he looked below in disbelief. On his face, drops of perspiration trickled down his forehead, not caused by heat but rather from a chilling fear. How can this be? This can't be. It's impossible. He could not believe the sight before him. To think 6 inborn experts were finished off in the blink of an eye. That was one destructive Inferno Divine Dragon, along with the formidable spiritual flame ball. That's the Dragon Ball for you. How is it? Wang Xian asked with a faint smile. I wonder if you've prepared yourself for death before laying in ambush to kill me, he continued. You can't kill me. You can't kill me, Bian Yaoquan stuttered as he retreated involuntarily, eyes filled with fear. He had considered endless possibilities, but the current scenario before him was one which he had not expected at all. To think a spiritual flame ball would be able to wipe out 6 inborn experts. Prior to this, they expected that 6 inborn experts would more than suffice in getting rid of the trio. Yeah, but you would be better off dead. Wang Xian cut off Bian Yaoquan, unwilling to waste more time on him. As he spoke, he fired the Dragon Ball to attack Bian Yaoquan. No. My father's the sect leader of Medical Saint Sect. If you kill me, my father will never let you off. Bian Yaoquan shrieked in terror as he saw the Dragon Ball flying in his direction. If the Medical Saint Sect should dare come after me, I'll annihilate them. Wang Xian rebuked with an expressionless face. Bam. Bian Yaoquan retreated in fright. Yet, in a flash, the Dragon Ball punctured through his body. This. For my sake, my father will, Bian Yaoquan muttered. Eyes wide, he looked at the little hole in his chest, which gradually opened up before it started to burn. Bian Yaoquan looked on as his eyes filled with a mix of indignation, remorse, and hatred. Courting doom. Wang Xian cut him off indifferently. He looked backward and saw Sun Lingxiu attending to Miracle Dr. Bloodman and treating his wounds. The Miracle Dr. Bloodman was in huge trouble, given that Wang Xian had been unable to fend for him when the blast occurred. Marred with severe injuries, he managed to survive all thanks to his formidable combat abilities. A level 9 weapon's pretty good stuff. Wang Xian let out a faint smile when he spotted the weapon on the ground. With one leap he hopped over to the weapon. Wang Xian uttered while he picked up the sky-splitting blade. As he assessed the body, Wang Xian spotted an elixir bottle made of porcelain around Bian Yaoquan's waist belt. He proceeded over and retrieved the bottle for a look. Level 4 elixir pill, to think that there are 4 level 4 elixir pills here. He cheered in excitement when he opened the porcelain bottle. It's a soul enhancement pill which is 1 level higher than a soul breaking pill. By consuming one, a half-step inborn can raise the possibility of elevating themselves to the inborn status by 20%. Wang Xian exclaimed with a tinge of passion in his eyes. The value of 1 soul enhancement pill was the same as a stalk of level 5 spiritual grass, which would fetch between 700 to 1,000 spiritual stones. Which was to say, the soul enhancement pills over here were worth close to 4,000 spiritual stones. Given the elixir pills I have, together with these 4 soul enhancement pills, I'll have enough spiritual stones for the construction of the Dragon Palace once they are sold. Wang Xian cheered excitedly. Aside from spiritual stones, Wang Xian was also running short on some gold and silver, though not by huge margins. Besides, they could be bought with money. And while he was currently broke, Wang Xian could first advance payment from Lan Qingyue's end or even borrow for the time being. Moreover, he still had more spiritual grasses on the floating island. Spiritual stones are the most important when it comes to constructing the Dragon Palace, which will be completed faster when there are enough spiritual stones. And as for now, they're sufficient. Wang Xian grinned. With a swing of his arm, he cremated the body. These 4 soul enhancement pills should be meant as payment for the 4 inborn experts. Seems like I've gained favor then. Wang Xian chuckled before he came to check on the remaining bodies. As inborn experts, there were bound to be treasures on them, which could easily fetch hundreds of millions when sold. After a search, some venom and more than 100 spiritual stones were found. Is everything all right? Wang Xian asked as he returned to check on Miracle Dr. Bloodman, who had gone pale. It'll take more than half a month to recover. Damn it, they almost squeezed my blood dry. Miracle Dr. Bloodman cursed weakly, while all color had gone from his face. It's good that you're all right, Wang Xian nodded. To which he turned to face Sun Lingxiu. Let's go, he gestured to her. Sure. Sun Lingxiu nodded back, and together the trio made their way to the airport on foot. Along the way, Wang Xian made several calls. He asked Lan Qingyue, Old Qin and Old Shui to assist him in gathering the final materials needed to construct the Dragon Palace. Ordinary materials such as steel were a piece of cake for them. It was already afternoon by the time they arrived back at the villa by air, while Xiao Yu and the others were attending classes. Miracle Dr. Bloodman headed right back to the other villa to nurse his injuries. Whereas Wang Xian turned to Sun Lingxiu and said, "Come, let me take you to a place." "Oh, where are we going?" Sun Lingxiu asked in surprise. "Follow me and you'll see." Wang Xian beamed in a great mood. They arrived by the seaside before they sped over in the direction of the floating island. The island up front is a floating island. It'll be considered as our marine base in times to come. Wang Xian introduced. Thereafter he hopped onto the island with a leap. As Sun Lingxiu followed behind, she surveyed the entire island with wide eyes. The floating island? To think it's the legendary floating island. Goodness, Xiao Xian. To think you actually managed to obtain a floating island. Sun Lingxiu cried out in astonishment. "I'm planning to start building the Dragon Palace within the next couple of days," Wang Xian said coolly. "What? Build a Dragon Palace?" Sun Lingxiu was shocked. As one with the bloodline of the Divine Dragon, it was only natural that Sun Lingxiu knew about the Dragon Palace and its significance. It symbolized the real standing of a Divine Dragon race. "That's right," Wang Xian admitted without the slightest concealment, given there was no need for him to hide anything from Sun Lingxiu. "I plan to construct a stately dragon palace amidst this boundless sea," Wang Xian shared with passion in his eyes. "I'll always be by your side, Xiao Xian," Sun Lingxiu exclaimed. Looking upon a high-spirited and lofty Wang Xian, she let out a faint smile, as if vowing in her heart never to leave till death do they part. "It won't be long before I, Wang Xian, conquer the seas in this entire galaxy," Wang Xian asserted while overwhelmed with fighting spirit. And thus began the conquest of the oceans. Soon, the Divine Dragon would officially set foot into this boundless sea. Chapter 354, Boundless Seas, The Choice of Location for the Dragon. Chapter 354, Boundless Seas, The Choice of Location for the Dragon Palace, 2. Currently, I'm only able to build a level 1 Dragon Palace. However, even a level 1 Dragon Palace wouldn't be any weaker than the base of a sacred sect. A level 1 Dragon Palace can be established in the depths of the sea. The area of the Dragon Palace could cover a radius of 10 kilometers. This is just a preliminary Dragon Palace. In the future, I'm going to build more structures. Wang Xian didn't know much about the preliminary Dragon Palace. However, he was sure that the Dragon Palace couldn't be built in the Bohai Sea. Bohai Sea was just a small piece of the seas with a depth of several tens of meters. Wang Xian wasn't certain of the exact height of the Dragon Palace. However, it would definitely be more than several tens of meters. The location where he would build his Dragon Palace would at least have to be 400 to 500 meters deep. The location of the Dragon Palace wouldn't stay stationary forever. A level 2 Dragon Palace would be able to move. In fact, when the Dragon Palace reached a higher level, it could even become a Dragon Nation. A Dragon Nation could fly in the air directly and would be incomparably powerful. Wang Xian brought Sun Lingxiu around the floating island. Subsequently, he dived into the sea. "Prime Minister Turtle, follow me to look for a region in the seas to build the Dragon Palace." Wang Xian transmitted his orders to Prime Minister Turtle. "Yes, Dragon King." Prime Minister Turtle's huge body floated rapidly. Wang Xian stood on it as they moved rapidly towards the deeper seas. The sea was beautiful, majestic and unfathomable. Standing on the back of the giant Prime Minister Turtle, Wang Xian looked around him. Regions that were tens of meters deep wouldn't be in consideration. Prime Minister Turtle was astonishingly quick. His current strength had now reached the pinnacle of level 11. In just a few months he would be able to reach level 12. "We will be entering the Eastern Sea soon. There's a trench in the Eastern Sea that reaches a depth of over 7,000 meters. Moreover, the Eastern Sea isn't too far from River Town." Wang Xian stood on Prime Minister Turtle and looked ahead of him. The sea ahead was much deeper. Barely any sunlight could reach this depth. The density of fish around was also higher. Wang Xian didn't devour the schools of fish. Instead, he ordered Prime Minister Turtle to swim forward rapidly. "Ah, that is? What a huge shark. It's over 14 meters long." Wang Xian looked to his left and his pupils couldn't help but constrict. That huge shark was looking in the direction of Wang Xian attentively with his cold-looking eyes. That is clearly the territory of a race, Wang Xian thought to himself. In the depths of the sea, different races would occupy different territories. If one entered into their territory, the person would suffer horrifying attacks from the race. Continue ahead. This was the first time Wang Xian had toured such a huge area of the seabed. This experience also allowed him to understand how horrifying the seabed was. There were underwater monsters with 4 huge limbs and looked just like a dinosaur. There were creatures that spanned over 2 meters, had countless legs and a tail with spikes that glowed in a dull glimmer. There were powerful fish that resembled tanks and had horrifying-looking heads. And there were fish that resembled bats with sharp heads and poison stings. These species were horrifying creatures that Wang Xian had not seen previously. They loitered within their own territory on the seabed and emitted horrifying auras. Wang Xian didn't clash with them. Even when these horrifying creatures charged towards him, he simply ordered Prime Minister Turtle to get away rapidly. Soon I'll be competing with you guys for supremacy in the seas. Wang Xian's lips curved into a smile as he looked ahead. This is? Right ahead of Wang Xian, there were multiple towering underwater mountains. Each mountain was approximately 200 meters tall. Among them, the largest mountain was over 200 meters tall. These mountains were densely packed. In an area that spanned several tens of meters in radius, there were 20 mountains. Other than the mountains, what caught Wang Xian's attention was the faint glow of the surroundings. The glow came from the jellyfish. In this region there were lots of jellyfish. They were densely packed and illuminated the area as though it was the day. Magical and beautiful. Together with the surrounding mountains, this would be a great location to build the Dragon Palace. Wang Xian looked around him and revealed a satisfied expression. The tallest mountain in the center could become his resting place or the accommodation for the Dragon King. As for the surrounding mountains, it could be allocated to roving heavens and the others. This shall be it. Wang Xian looked around him in satisfaction. However, just as he made up his mind, he squinted his eyes and looked attentively towards a far place. Right there, a bloom of humongous jellyfish was swimming towards the various mountains. Although their speed wasn't fast, their terrifying bodies made Wang Xian worried. In the middle of the bloom, there was a jellyfish with countless tentacles. It was almost the size of the entire mountain. It was shaped like an oval and spanned over 10 meters. As for its tentacles, they were 50 to 60 meters long. The densely packed glowing tentacles covered an area over 100 meters. How could there be such a huge jellyfish? Wang Xian was shocked. Other than the largest jellyfish, there were multiple jellyfish with tentacles of 30 to 40 meters. The 20-odd jellyfish together illuminated the entire region. Before the eyes of Wang Xian, these jellyfish landed on the peak of each mountain. Their tentacles scattered between the mountain peaks. When looking from afar, the region resembled mountains that were glowing. This is the territory of these huge jellyfish. Wang Xian's eyebrows knitted together. Clearly, this place had been occupied by this powerful jellyfish race. Let's go take a look. Wang Xian directed his thoughts to Prime Minister Turtle and commanded him to move closer towards one of the jellyfish. When Prime Minister Turtle was approximately 100 meters away from a jellyfish, the tentacles of the jellyfish, which were resting on the mountain, moved abruptly. It was as though they had eyes. Those soft tentacles were covered in razor-sharp needles and pointed towards them. Swish, swish, swish. At the next instant, the densely packed needles that covered the surrounding 50 meters swept towards Wang Xian. Aurora Jellyfish, Level 11. Extractable Dragon Energy, 254,433. A Level 11 Jellyfish. When Wang Xian saw the information about this jellyfish, he wasn't too surprised. Boom. At this moment, Prime Minister Turtle made a move. A wall of earth rose from the seabed and completely blocked off the needles from the jellyfish. Let's go. Wang Xian instructed Prime Minister Turtle after seeing other jellyfish in the vicinity starting to move. Prime Minister Turtle moved its limbs and left this region rapidly. The bloom of jellyfish did not give chase upon seeing Wang Xian and Prime Minister Turtle leaving. They slowly landed back on the peak of the mountain. The largest jellyfish must be level 12 while the rest are level 11. Wang Xian frowned slightly. Among his subordinates, only Prime Minister Turtle, Roving Heavens and Roving Yuxia were level 11. It would be difficult to deal with this bloom of jellyfish. There are still too many terrifying creatures in the seas. The Dragon Palace still isn't sufficiently powerful. Wang Xian felt a little bitter. Chapter 355, Evolution. Chapter 355, Evolution. Wang Xian stood on the sea surface with a burdened look, after cruising the eastern sea for quite some time. The sky was now dark. As the surrounding area was consumed by pitch black, it seemed like an endless abyss. Within the seas, every region is inhabited by a powerful race which controls the best and most scenic spots within their area. Unless we're able to seize hold of a territory, we'll have to construct the Dragon Palace in a corner. Wang Xian uttered to himself. It was only natural that he was unwilling to have his Dragon Palace built in a corner. Yet, by not wanting to have it in a corner, he would then have to fight for territory. With a flicker in his eyes, Wang Xian began to recall the various regions which had interested him earlier. He was most pleased with the area inhabited by the Aurora Jellyfish. However, it would be hard for the Dragon Palace members to win over the Jellyfishes for now, for they were simply too powerful. That said, there was one other location other than the ones with the Aurora Jellyfish. It was an area with coral reefs, inhabited by giant cuttlefish. Each of them measured more than 10 meters in length and had numerous tentacles. Amongst which there was a level 12 cuttlefish, 5 level 11 cuttlefishes, along with scores of level 10. The area they covered was filled with coral reefs and looked very stunning, which Wang Xian considered as his second choice. Aside from this, there was still one more area which was located in an underwater canyon fissure. Stretching up to tens of kilometers, the fissure was located at about 2,000 meters below sea level, amongst the deeper regions of the eastern sea. But the canyon fissure had a shortcoming. It was a little narrow as it only stretched slightly over 1,000 meters across, which made it less suitable as a location for the Dragon Palace. Moreover, the fissure was inhabited by a group of bat-like creatures which were highly ferocious. Just earlier, dozens of them had chased after Wang Xian and gang over tens of kilometers. I'll head back for now. If it doesn't work out, I'll explore other territorial waters, Wang Xian thought to himself. Wang Xian had no wish to base his Dragon Palace within the 4 major oceans, as it was not a region which the Dragon Palace could venture into for now, given its current abilities. Ferrying Wang Xian on his back, Prime Minister Turtle hurried over to Rivertown. It was over 10 at night by the time they had arrived. Back in the villa, Xiaoyu, Elder Fang and the rest had already turned in. Knowing that Guan Shuqing was also in the villa, Wang Xian crept into the room stealthily before he made his leap. To which, Guan Shuqing gave him a killer stare when she saw him coming in. But it was not the first time that this had happened, and soon enough dulcet sounds could be heard from the room. Although Guan Shuqing was now a half-step inborn with a much improved physical constitution, she was still no match for Wang Xian, whose powers were simply too formidable. Seems like I really have to rope Qingyue into the team soon. Guan Shuqing wondered to herself in a dreamy state, before lying on the bed and falling into a deep sleep. At dawn, the sky was somewhat overcast. It was predicted on the phone's weather forecast that downpours would be expected for the next couple of days. While Xiaoyu and the others went to school, Wang Xian dialed the number as provided by the elder when they were previously at the National Treasury. In less than half an hour, 3 middle-aged men arrived at the villa. The trio had not spoken much, but merely handed their spiritual stones over to Wang Xian in purchase of all the elixir pills which he had in hand. In the next couple of days, resources arrived one by one, which Wang Xian wasted no time in keeping away. He was in an exceptionally good mood, as more than 90% of the materials needed to construct the Dragon Palace had been gathered. But one issue still bugged him: the choice of location for the Dragon Palace. It was difficult to snag a good location, given that the combat abilities of some Dragon Palace members were still weak. By day 3, however, 2 pieces of good news came along. The collection of materials for the construction of the Dragon Palace is complete. Please select your construction site. At last, the collection of materials meant for the Dragon Palace was completed. The construction could now commence immediately. While the second piece of good news came from the Dragon Palace members. As he stood amidst the seas, Wang Xian looked ahead where the 9 venomous sea snakes had gathered. Pieces of long skin were shedding off their bodies as they slithered in quick rhythms, while the pairs of horns on their heads began to grow out. There were also changes to their heads. They were no longer rounded like that of a snakehead. Rather, they had gotten more pronounced and dimensional, which made them appear more sophisticated and majestic than before. 4 small bumps had also emerged from their abdominal area, while their bodies had grown up to around 10 meters as they began to fade in color, gradually turning white. They've evolved and upgraded to level 11. But they've still got more to go if they wish to evolve into serpents. Wang Xian cheered in excitement. The 9 venomous sea snakes had always been the stronger of powers amongst the Dragon Palace members, given that they possessed the bloodline of the Wind Divine Dragon. When they joined forces, killing a level 11 creature became a breeze for them. Now that they had upgraded to level 11, their abilities are already beyond formidable even though they had yet to evolve into serpents. The powers within the Dragon Palace are still inadequate. Now that the 9 venomous sea snakes have evolved, it has since raised the overall powers of the Dragon Palace by 2 to 3 times. Wang Xian laughed contentedly. The 9 venomous sea snakes, each measuring 10 meters long, were as thick as an adult human thigh. And when they glided in the waters, optical illusions would form along with their trails due to their shocking speeds. These 9 venomous sea snakes have evolved to level 11. Now's the time to seize the territory of the Aurora Jellyfish. Wang Xian said with a glow in his eyes. Although there were over 20 level 11 Aurora Jellyfishes, they could well handle a little over a dozen of them with their current prowess. Together with Prime Minister, Roving Heavens and Roving Yuxia, their chances of success were high. Make preparations. We're constructing the Dragon Palace. Wang Xian ordered cheerfully before heading for his villa. As of now, construction workers engaged by Mo Qinglong and Mo Yuan had begun with the transformation works on the floating island. Based on estimates, it would not be long before the works were completed. As Wang Xian stepped into the villa, he saw a group of girls and walked over with a wide smile. "Qingyue, have you finished settling the company matters?" Wang Xian asked with a grin, before he shamelessly squeezed himself into the seat in between Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyue. "Yep, it's settled." Lan Qingyue replied as she leaned against Wang Xian's body briefly. "As for now, I can relax for a short period," she continued. "Yep. And all of you can follow me to a place tomorrow," Wang Xian said to them after a moment of hesitation. He planned to bring them around the Dragon Palace after it had been completed. Some things cannot be kept in the dark, and Wang Xian had no intention of hiding it either. It was easy to explain why he could transform into a divine dragon. He could attribute this to having succeeded the divine dragon's legacy. During the cultivation on Earth, there were bloodline cultivators who would transform into beasts. Hence, although his becoming the divine dragon would be astonishing, it would not be considered too atypical to say the least. "Can't do, we have classes to attend tomorrow?" Lan Qingyue and Guan Shuqing shook their heads to decline. "You have to make this trip. I have something to show all of you." "Shall you?" Wang Xian refuted. "Brother, I can't make it tomorrow. I'm making a trip back to Thistles and Thorns Sect with Mentor. The youth tournament's commencing soon. I've got to make preparations." Xiao Yu rejected Wang Xian's offer without waiting for him to finish his sentence. Wang Xian smiled and nodded back. Chapter 356, Territory of a Sect. Chapter 356, Territory of a Sect. Where are we going? The next morning, Lan Qingyue and Guan Shuqing stood on the deck of the yacht, stretched their bodies lazily and asked Wang Xian. They took a glance at Sun Lingxiu, who was standing by the side, as they pouted discontentedly. Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyue no longer felt any separation between them. However, they weren't very comfortable with the idea of including Sun Lingxiu. They stared at Wang Xian and made their displeasure clearly known through their expressions. Wang Xian smiled bitterly and pretended to not have noticed the displeasure. Instead, he hugged both of them and said, "Let me bring you to a magical place, a place you guys would never have imagined." "Oh? Where are we going?" The two girls beamed and weren't particular about this pervert hugging them both at the same time. Although Wang Xian had not taken down Lan Qingyue over this period of time, he had taken all kinds of advantages of her. After some time, the two girls became used to it. "It's a secret. You will know once we are there." Wang Xian revealed a mysterious smile. The Dragon Palace hadn't been built. However, the system allowed it to be built almost instantly. Therefore, all he had to do was to take down the territory that was occupied by the Jellyfish before building the Dragon Palace. After its establishment, the Dragon Palace would have multiple powerful abilities. At that time, the Dragon Pool, Dragon Gates and other structures would appear. "Come, let's have some delicious fish and some red wine. How romantic is this?" Wang Xian smiled radiantly and brought the girls to the restaurant on the yacht. After this, he went to the fridge to retrieve a piece of fish that was shimmering in a lustrous glow. This piece of fish was the flesh of an inborn level fish. The energy in it wouldn't be any less than a level 2 spiritual medicine. The flesh of powerful creatures was incomparably delicious. By dipping it in a little sauce, even the Atlantic bluefin marlin couldn't compare to it. Delicious food and wine with beautiful girls as companions. Sun Lingxiu stood by the side and looked at them with a gentle smile. She didn't appear to be fighting to be with Wang Xian. This made Lan Qingyue and Guan Shuqing a little embarrassed. Therefore they invited her over to chat and eat. The yacht moved quickly and the members of the Dragon Palace followed closely below the water's surface. At the forefront, Roving Heavens, Roving Yaksha, Prime Minister Turtle and the 9 venomous sea snakes led the way. 12 level 12 existences. At the back there were Roving Girl, Roving Lobster, 2 blood pythons and the inborn experts from the Devil Division and the Dragon Guard Division. That was an additional 23 experts. Behind them were a group of level 8 and 9 existences. Based on Wang Xian's illustration, Mo Qinglong steered the yacht towards the territory of the Aurora Jellyfish. The Eastern Sea District was vast. Based on the information on the map, the region where the Aurora Jellyfishes were was part of the public seas. The landscape of the Eastern Sea was extremely complicated, like the mountainous seabed that the Aurora Jellyfishes occupied. There were lots of mountains in the Eastern Sea. Counting small islands alone, there were more than 6,000. Occasionally one could see the islands on the sea from afar. Some islands were deserted while some were brimming with vitality. Wang Xian looked into the distance and knew that on one of these islands, there might be powerful sects or families. The yacht steered rapidly forward. Lan Qingyue and Guan Shuqing had a great time on the deck. Boom. Just as they were about to reach the territory of the Aurora Jellyfish, a horrifying explosion erupted. Wang Xian was shocked and immediately looked to his left. That is? There were 3 ships that looked distinctly different from ordinary ships. The bodies of these ships were black and looked incomparably tough. On the ship there were many martial artists. Every single one of them held a sharp longsword in their hands. They were attacking the surface of the sea. In the sea, a horrifying sea creature that spanned several dozens of meters long was tumbling furiously. Several martial artists were dashing across the sea with their long swords and slashing the creature. That is? Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyue were surprised and looked in shock. This is? Hunting strong marine creatures? Wang Xian sank into deep thought. The essences of powerful creatures in the seas were all hidden within their flesh. The value of an inborn level creature could match a level 5 spiritual medicine. In fact, if you encountered unique inborn level creatures, the value would be even higher. On land, various experts from different sects hunted sea creatures in various places just to obtain their flesh. The yacht continued forward and slowly approached the region where the commotion erupted. At this moment, an old man standing at the forefront of the black ship turned his head over, took a glance at the approaching yacht and waved his hand. On the boat, a black ball appeared in the old man's hand before the old man threw it towards the yacht. Wang Xian stared at the black spherical object flying towards him. He frowned instantly and waved his hand. Boom. An explosion resounded in the air and caused a mushroom cloud. Seeing his thunder clouds boom exploding in mid-air, the old man on the black ship raised an eyebrow. Scram. This is the territory of the sacred seas of swords. A cold voice emanated from his mouth. Upon hearing his voice, Wang Xian squinted his eyes. Sacred seas of swords. He raised an eyebrow. Mo Qinglong, who was behind the steering wheel, changed the direction of the yacht immediately. Wang Xian took a long stare at the old man but did not attack them. His main priority would be to build the Dragon Palace. He had no time to play around with other forces. The bottom of the sea is occupied by powerful creatures and the surface of the sea is also occupied by some powerful forces. Wang Xian thought to himself. Powerful forces could occupy the seas and islands and hunt powerful creatures within the seas. This jolted his memory about the floating island and the sect that was annihilated by some horrifying creature. The seas are not as peaceful as I imagined. Wang Xian showed a faint smile. It would only be interesting if this was the case. The yacht continued moving forward. At night, they arrived at the region where the Aurora Jellyfish resided. This place was roughly 200 kilometers away from land. After having dinner with Lan Qingyue, Guan Shuqing and Sun Lingxiu, Wang Xian chatted with them for a while. Seeing that Wang Xian wanted to return to his room to rest, Lan Qingyue was a little surprised. I'm prepared today, but you? Jeske. She pouted and headed back to her room. Wang Xian didn't know he had missed a great opportunity. At this moment he was at the bottom of the yacht. Dragon transformation. Without hesitation, Wang Xian dived deeper into the seas. He turned around and looked at the members of the Dragon Palace. He released his dragon power and looked towards the region before him. In that region, 20-odd mountains stood within the depths of the sea. Each mountain was glowing brightly, making the entire region resemble the day. Around it, countless jellyfish were swimming slowly within the sea. This place shall become the base of the Dragon Palace. Wang Xian revealed a faint smile. From here on out, the Dragon Palace would start from the Eastern Sea and move towards conquering all the oceans. Chapter 357, Immortal Jellyfish, 1. Chapter 357, Immortal Jellyfish, 1. Boom boom boom. Pat pat pat. The sky above the seas was capricious. As a thunderstorm raged without the slightest warning, it poured rainwater on the entire ocean. Within the ocean somewhere along the Eastern Sea, Wang Xian was maneuvering his huge body underwater, while staring coldly at the world before him. As the rain continued to rage, it sent crashing waves while throwing the world above into darkness. Yet, underwater all was still and calm. The waves had not been tidal, hence they did not give rise to any ripples underwater. Somewhere ahead, the entire sea had been brightly lit by the jellyfish, which came in colors of all sorts and appeared very dreamy. Alongside were numerous seamounts, looking all vast and imposing. Wang Xian looked on with narrowed eyes as he swept his gaze back. "Occupy this place and build the palace," he ordered. "Yes, Dragon King," the group of Dragon Palace members replied as they gazed off in preparation. "Let's go." Wang Xian gestured. With quick reflexes, he shifted himself and charged forward, oozing a dignified air of the divine dragon as he did. Following behind, Prime Minister Turtle and other members displayed a menacing stance as they charged like an imposing army troop. Pat pat pat. Before Wang Xian and gang could approach, sounds of gushing water emerged. Jellyfishes began to rise above the more than 20 seamounts, swaying their countless tentacles along. Their pace was somewhat slow, but visually aesthetic as each tentacle shimmered with lights. The sloshing of water had come from the largest jellyfish located in the center, and as it swayed, all remaining jellyfish followed in tandem. As they ascended, their countless tentacles began to reach out towards Wang Xian and gang. Besides these 20 Aurora jellyfishes, another jellyfish with a tentacle of over 10 meters slowly emerged from the back of other seamounts. Within a radius of tens of kilometers, all the jellyfish began to ascend and fill the sea like a star-studded sky. However, while the jellyfish had come in astonishing numbers, their fighting abilities were relatively weak. Their movements were slow, especially the smaller jellyfish, and did not pose the slightest threat to Wang Xian and gang. Howl howl. Together with the rest, Wang Xian, Prime Minister Turtle, Roving Heavens made low growls before they gradually approached. Zoom zoom zoom. When the gang was about 1,000 meters away from the swarm of jellyfish, 23 of them shot their tentacles out, from which, countless aqua needles darted towards the gang. Each jellyfish had more than 100,000 tentacles to say the least. With 23 of such terrifying creatures, there were more than 1,000,000 aqua needles shooting past the waters and coming for the gang at once. Howl howl. Behind the gang, the Yuxia clan from the Dragon Guard division hollered in unison. As they raised their weapon-like arms, all the Yuxias filed out in a single line and charged ahead towards the opponents. Waters began to tumble as they crashed towards the flood of aqua needles. Howl. Prime Minister Turtle glided gracefully to the seabed, before pieces of the seabed floor were uprooted and thrust in the direction of the aqua needles. Dragon journeys the four seas. Wang Xian shouted as he swished his tail. To which, the surrounding waters began to tumble violently. Boom boom boom. The sea waters began to surge and crash at each other. The battle could break out at any moment. Kill? Wang Xian commanded with no hesitation. With quick shifts, he charged forth at the largest and centermost jellyfish. The rest of the Dragon Palace members swooped over towards the remaining giant jellyfish. When they saw Wang Xian and gang coming at them after intercepting their aqua needles, the swarm of jellyfish began to wiggle their tentacles. They stormed up front to meet Wang Xian and gang face to face. Aurora Jellyfish, Level 12. Extractable Dragon Energy. 1,322,321. Wang Xian took in the information as he narrowed his eyes. They were level 12 jellyfish just as he had expected. Shoo shoo shoo. The tentacles lashed at Wang Xian like aqua whips. Gore. Wang Xian let out a dragon's roar, which opened up a vacuum area of around 100 meters ahead, where the surrounding seawater had repelled beyond. Wang Xian stared at the tens of thousands of tentacles coming at him, before widening his mouth. Boom. A streak of flames appeared within the ocean. The flames scorched furiously as they lit the underwater into a sea of red. TSK 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 TSK. Tentacles by the tens of thousands sizzled in torching flames. Zing. Just then blue light flickered atop the heads of the aurora jellyfishes, which was then dispersed into the tentacles. Shoo shoo shoo. Sounds of the tentacles sizzling in flames disappeared in a flash, as they began to glow in blue before lashing out at Wang Xian once more. Pat pat pat. Wang Xian's face cringed when he heard the sound. It resembled droplets dripping onto a stone, eventually hollowing it. It was petrifying to think that these tentacles, thin as needle thread, could actually cause lacerations on Wang Xian's body. No doubt a level 12 creature, Wang Xian commented. With quick reflexes, he raised his dragon claws and tore at the tentacles. The dragon claws flashed with a metallic shine, as they emitted the energy of the gold summit which cut straight ahead, slaying the tentacles along their path. TSK TSK TSK. Sounds of sizzling could be heard once again, as the blue light in the tentacles disappeared in the blink of an eye. Wang Xian soon discovered that the tentacles of these aurora jellyfishes were highly resilient, and could not be sliced off easily. Once the blue lights were gone, the tentacles drifted motionlessly as though all energy had been depleted from them. However, the thousands of tentacles were literally just a drop in the ocean to the mammoth jellyfish, completely negligible, given its physical size, which was comparable to a mountain. Begone, die. Wang Xian hollered as he looked at the giant aurora jellyfish with icy stares, while his own body began to change. Roar. Wang Xian growled. As he swayed to and fro, his body began to emit grayish bouts of the earth dragon energy. In the 5 elements, earth repels water. As a dragon of the earth element, he was able to repel all creatures of the water element. As he swung his dragon claws, grayish bouts of earth dragon energy transformed into smaller, individual earth dragons. Zing zing zing. Within the waters, splashes of mud attached themselves onto the small dragons before wrapping them up. This eventually transformed them into physical earth dragons, each measuring up to 2 meters. With mouths gaping open, the dragons lunged at the aurora jellyfishes, ready to attack. Shoo shoo shoo. Countless tentacles of the aurora jellyfishes shot back at the grayish earth dragons in retaliation. Dragons crunch. Wang Xian ordered as his eyes looked on in slits. In response, the transmogrified earth dragons opened their mouths wide and sank their teeth into the tentacles. The tentacles withered away as though devoid of life. In an instant, several hundred transmogrified earth dragons had drained all vigor from the tens of thousands of tentacles. Zing zing zing. From its gigantic head, the jellyfish let out a soft spurt before shooting blue rays in Wang Xian's direction. Shoo shoo shoo. That's the sapphire aurora jet. Wang Xian gasped at the sight of the blue rays cutting straight at him. As he flinched his face, Wang Xian bared his teeth. Boom. A bout of energy the color of custard surged forth, thrusting and coagulating to form a gigantic shield. Measuring 10 meters in length, the shield looked substantial and heavy. Shoo. A streak of the sapphire aurora jet pierced through the shield, and took Wang Xian by surprise. Roar. Wang Xian growled, this time emitting yet another bout of the earth dragon energy which landed right in front of the shield. In an instant the shield thickened to tens of meters. The most formidable defense by an earth dragon. Chapter 358 Immortal Jellyfish 2. Chapter 358 Immortal Jellyfish 2. The most primitive battle was also the most spectacular battle. In the sea, Wang Xian was constantly wiggling his huge, 7-meter body. He constantly ejected earth dragon energy from his mouth to strengthen the defense of the earth dragon. Densely packed streams of blue aurora jets shot towards Wang Xian. Drips of water could penetrate the toughest of objects in the natural world given time. the penetrative force of the Aurora Jets would only be even stronger. If Wang Xian had not transformed into the Earth Divine Dragon, he wouldn't be able to withstand these horrifying Aurora Jets. Gur gur gur. At this point, Wang Xian heard pitiful cries erupting from all around him. He immediately turned his head over. A short distance away, an Aurora Jellyfish also shot identical blue Aurora Jets at the devil monkeys that were surrounding it. Streams of Aurora Jets penetrated the bodies of these weak devil monkeys and they were crying out in pain. However, these Aurora Jets were minute. As long as they didn't hit a vital organ when piercing through the bodies of these devil monkeys, they wouldn't kill the devil monkeys. This made Wang Xian a little more relieved. In fact, with the regeneration speed of the devil monkeys, they could even recover from these attacks almost instantly. Die. Roving Heavens stared intensely at the Aurora Jellyfish ahead of him. He was furious and was revealing his pair of incisors. Around him, horrifying devilish aura circulated. He spun the metal rod in his hand rapidly before him to defend against the streams of Aurora Jets. When the wave of attacks ended, Roving Heavens immediately leapt forward. A mirage of a devil monkey appeared behind him as he smashed heavily towards the Aurora Jellyfish. Swish swish swish. The level 11 Aurora Jellyfish reacted by sending its tentacles towards Roving Heavens. Growling grr. Vengeance gleamed in the eyes of the devil monkey image behind Roving Heavens. Over 100 devil monkeys leapt forward and attacked the tentacles of the Aurora Jellyfish. The majority of the tentacles of the Aurora Jellyfish were stopped by the devil monkeys. Die. Roving Heavens roared furiously as he went down hard on the Aurora Jellyfish. Wang. A huge patch of the blue light on the Aurora Jellyfish instantly dissipated. CI. Roving Heavens gritted his teeth and landed another heavy strike on the Aurora Jellyfish. BZZ. Another huge patch of blue light on the Aurora Jellyfish subsided once again. Wang Xian noticed that as the blue glow dissipated, the strength of the Aurora Jellyfish weakened substantially. Although there wasn't any sign of injuries on the jellyfish, its attack had softened substantially. At the other end, Wang Xian was shocked to see Roving Girl and Roving Lobster holding their ground against a level 11 Aurora Jellyfish. The intensity of their battle surprised Wang Xian. Roving Lobster stood at approximately 3 meters tall and had a metal glow throughout his body. He was standing ahead of the Aurora Jellyfish with its razor-sharp pincers pointing towards the Aurora Jellyfish. Behind him, Roving Girl was constantly manipulating the water around her by moving her arms. She sent streams of water towards Roving Lobster to aid him in battle. These streams enabled Roving Lobster to accelerate, defend and even allow the formation of tentacles extending from his back. With these tentacles, she completely neutralized the tentacles of the Aurora Jellyfish. As for Roving Lobster, he stood face to face with the Aurora Jellyfish in a brutal and direct confrontation. Streams of blue Aurora Jets were shot towards Roving Lobster. In response, Roving Lobster used his 2 huge pincers to guard himself. On the surface of its pincers, there was also a thick layer of water shield. As the Aurora Jets pierced through the water shield and landed on Roving Lobster's pincers, sounds of metal clashing could be heard. These pincers were the toughest parts on Roving Lobster. They were even sharper and tougher than inborn spiritual weapons. Swish swish swish. When the Aurora Jellyfish noticed that its attacks were futile on Roving Lobster, it changed its target instantly and attacked Roving Girl instead. Pah. However, the Aurora Jellyfish was shocked to see its attacks landed on the clamshell instead. The Aurora Jets didn't leave any marks on the heavy clamshell that had a blue glow. The defense of the clamshell was even more insane than the pincers of Roving Lobster. Ka. In this split second, Roving Lobster swung its huge razor-sharp pincers towards the Aurora Jellyfish. Beside Roving Girl and Roving Lobster, Prime Minister Turtle went against 2 Aurora Jellyfish at the same time and easily crushed them. When the blue Aurora Jets landed on the heavy shell of Prime Minister Turtle, all they left were small white dots. Other than having a horrifying defense, the Prime Minister Turtle also had incredible earth control ability. Roving Girl, Roving Lobster and Prime Minister Turtle were the first 3 subordinates Wang Xian had taken in. The time they had to practice their cultivation arts of the Divine Dragon was also the longest. At level 10, Roving Girl and Roving Lobster could go against the level 11 Aurora Jellyfish. As for Prime Minister Turtle, he could even crush 2 Aurora Jellyfish. Prime Minister Turtle's strength was also the strongest among all the other members of the Dragon Palace. Even the 9 venomous sea snakes, which possessed the bloodline of the Wind Divine Dragon, were slightly inferior. On the other end, the 9 venomous sea snakes were equally incredible in battle. Although they had not evolved to the serpent stage, they already possessed some strength and might of a serpent. When moving within the sea, they were just like phantoms. Despite having huge bodies, it was still hard to catch sight of them. One could really describe them as moving with wizardly elusiveness. The bodies of the 9 venomous sea snakes shimmered as they approached the Aurora jellyfish rapidly. At the same time, they carried razor-sharp wind blades that penetrated the Aurora jellyfish directly. Complete domination. For the strongest Dragon Guard division of the Dragon Palace, roving Wuxia led a group of Wuxia warriors to fight against 3 Aurora jellyfish. Their attacks were potent and destructive. While fighting and defending together, they were able to kill an Aurora jellyfish in an extremely short period of time. However, Wang Xian was shocked to notice no signs of injuries on the jellyfish that had been killed and sank into the bottom of the sea. The dragon energy within it had already dissipated, and it was definitely strange. After taking a quick glance, Wang Xian turned his attention to the Aurora jellyfish ahead of him and revealed a smirk. He suspended himself in the sea and slowly swayed his dragon tail. Below him, clumps of earth started rising and coalesced into one. Boom boom boom. Subsequently, a huge piece of earth flew over, combined and quickly condensed together. Gradually, a huge 20-meter-tall earth mountain appeared on Wang Xian. Roar. Wang Xian opened his mouth and ejected a stream of earth dragon energy that surrounded the earth mountain. Rumble rumble. The earth mountain condensed further and emanated heavy and horrifying aura. With a movement, the earth mountain appeared above him and was directed towards the Aurora jellyfish. Swish swish swish. 50-meter-long tentacles of the Aurora jellyfish moved rapidly like thousands and thousands of ice needles towards Wang Xian. Roar. Wang Xian lifted his head and directed the earth mountain above him to shield his head. Subsequently, Wang Xian manipulated the earth mountain and pushed it towards the Aurora jellyfish ahead of him. The earth mountain carried incredible momentum as it crashed towards the Aurora jellyfish. Pa pa pa. The Aurora jellyfish wrapped its tentacles around the earth mountain. On the surface, dullish yellow energies clashed directly with the blue glow on the Aurora jellyfish. Chapter 359 Vastless Sea, Establishment of the Dragon Palace, 1. Chapter 359, Vastless Sea, Establishment of the Dragon Palace, 1. Boom. Following the crashes due to the violent collision, the huge mountain of earth blew into pieces. The lights on the tentacles of the Aurora jellyfish began to flicker, before it eventually disappeared completely. Atop the jellyfish, its gigantic head measuring 10 meters in diameter was lit brightly in blue. The rays were shielding against the surging earth bits as a result of the explosion earlier. The entire mountain of earth measured 20 meters in height. Hence its impact during the explosion was powerful enough to send waters as far as 1,000 meters away on a violent tumble. Huge waves billowed even in the deep seas 1,000 meters below. TSK TSK TSK. Eventually, all remnants of blue light on the giant Aurora jellyfish blew out. This caused its surrounding area to dim in an instant. Meanwhile, within the territorial waters nearby, the area began to darken as the huge jellyfish began losing their glow one by one. Out of fear and shock, the smaller jellyfish nearby dispersed themselves as they began to scramble for safety. In spite of this, a huge proportion of the jellyfish swam over to the carcass of the Aurora jellyfish, as they glowed alongside the body which had lost all luster. Wang Xian smiled briefly as he swept his glance across. The battle nearby ended quickly as Prime Minister Turtle and the rest swam over to Wang Xian's side. Reports Dragon King. The Devil Division has lost 50 men, while there are no further casualties from the rest of our men. The voice of Prime Minister Turtle drifted from behind Wang Xian, as the former made his update. Wang Xian nodded in acknowledgement, before turning his head over to face the Devil Division. Casualties were inevitable, since the Devil Division had been the weakest within the Dragon Palace in terms of combat powers. 700 or so devil monkeys remained out of the initial 800. That said, the remaining survivors were all level 8 to 9 combatants. The weaker ones had all perished in the battle earlier. They're still too weak. If only they hadn't died, Wang Xian sighed. But he soon recovered with a satisfied smile as he surveyed the territorial waters, unable to contain his excitement. With a change of stance, he swam over to a nearby seamount with no delay. As he rested atop the seamount, he scanned the surrounding areas. "This is the place," Wang Xian said as he inhaled deeply. "Construct the Dragon Palace." He uttered the words with a surge of emotions. Ding. The collection of materials for the construction of the Dragon Palace has been completed. Scanning the territorial waters around to assess its suitability for the construction. Do you want to build the Dragon Palace? An elementary Dragon Palace will come with a Dragon King Hall, Dragon Transformation Pool, Dragon's Gate, Sea Stabilizing Immortal Column, Dragon Cave, Dragon Field and Dragon Array. The sound from the system explained while Wang Xian listened with stirred emotions. Construct. Boom. Constructing the Dragon Palace. The voice, which seemed like it was calling from both heaven and earth as well as the primeval era, called out to Wang Xian within his head. This was then followed by rays of precosmic light which shone in front of him. The precosmic rays began to scatter out, and shone over an area 10 kilometers in radius. While endless energy began pouring in over an even bigger area 1,000 miles in radius. The weather began to evolve. Energies from the entire ocean, earth elements and water elements including those from aquatic plants, metal elements from rocks and stones, as well as spiritual energy of all sorts were sapped. Together, the energies gathered over and grew immensely in strength, as if to split sky and shatter earth, as the precosmic rays continued to shine over the area of 10 miles in radius. Under Wang Xian's astonished gaze, major changes began to take place from beneath his feet. The entire seamount was going through major transformations at alarming speeds which could be captured by the naked eye. A majestic Dragon King Hall emerged below Wang Xian. The majority of the seamount, which measured 200 meters in height, had been transformed. A huge hole had been dug out from its lower area. The upper area of the seamount was now supported by 2 titanic pillars. Thereafter, a royal residence hall emerged in the middle of the seamount, and appeared absolutely extravagant. Down below, a golden dragon throne measuring 3 meters in length appeared. While underneath the dragon throne lay the mesmerizing Dragon King Hall, decked in silver and gold. As coral colonies lined the sides of the hall, shimmering in different hues, numerous sedimentary rocks were placed and spaced out as seats for guests. The entire grand hall occupied a space measuring 2,000 meters in radius, making it appear incredibly spacious. Creak creak. The Dragon King Hall has been completed. Right then, behind the Dragon King Hall where 3 seamounts stood, a giant crater measuring 1,000 meters in radius appeared in the centermost region of the seamount range. Following which, several colorful pillars rooted out, which were gradually embellished by multiple divine dragon motifs. There were 9 pillars in all, each measuring 50 meters in length and 3 meters wide. They were accompanied by divine dragon motifs of 9 different elements. As the dragons sprawled across the pillar surface, their heads pointed towards the direction atop the giant crater with their mouths gaping open. The divine dragons belonged to the 9 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, light, and darkness. Yet there was nothing in the giant crater. The dragon transformation pool has been completed. Creak creak creak. Immediately after, on the sides of the Dragon King Hall, more than a dozen seamounts began to shift unimaginably. On the right of the hall, the lower regions of the seamounts began to hollow, where it was replaced by pillars which now supported the entire structure. The giant hole that was created stretched diagonally underground, reaching up to 5,000 meters in depth. While numerous luxurious caves emerged within its interior, there was one main cave followed by other remaining chambers. The Dragon Cave has been completed. Boom boom boom. Along with the loud blasts and continuous booms, a dragon field measuring 2,000 meters wide and 6,000 meters long appeared in the middle of the seamount range. Pop pop pop. The sides of the dragon field were lined with multiple weapon racks, although there were no weapons on them. The dragon field has been completed. Zing 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 zing. Just then Wang Xian sensed an object sprouting out from the ground beneath. True enough, a titanic pillar surfaced then and there. The pillar was located at the back of the Dragon King Hall, measuring 5 meters wide and 200 meters long. On the pillar, the characters Sea Stabilizing Immortal Column were embossed in giant gold font. The appearance of the Sea Stabilizing Immortal Columns caused energies from the area of within 1,000-meter radius to begin surging over. As they poured in, the Sea Stabilizing Immortal Columns began to shine with a brilliant sheen. It looked majestic beyond comparison. The sea-stabilizing immortal columns have been completed. Creak, creak, creak. Beyond a series of gold shimmers at the four corners of the Dragon Palace, several dragon's gates measuring 100 meters tall and 200 meters wide appeared. On the four dragons' gate were two words written in giant gold font, which read, Dragon Palace. A blue ripple appeared in the middle of the gates, as if to create a nebulous divider. The dragon's gates have been completed. Boom, boom, boom. As the final touch, a formidable energy swirl appeared above the Dragon Palace. Like raging floodwaters upon the release of the barrage crest gates, underwater energies within the area of 1,000 miles in radius began to surge into the Dragon Palace. The energy surge resulted in the shimmering of the more than 20 seamounts, as though they were brimming with life. The entire Dragon Palace and its surroundings underwater were brightly lit up, while corals of assorted colors gleamed with radiance. The dragon array has been completed. The energy from the skies continued to be injected into the Dragon Palace, but eventually came to stabilize. The Dragon King Hall, Dragon Transformation Pool, Dragon's Gate, Sea Stabilizing Immortal Columns, Dragon Cave, Dragon Field, and Dragon Array had all been completed. Ding. The progenitor tree in the Dragon King has been detected. Should this be transferred into the Dragon King Hall? The voice from the system inquired. Transfer. Wang Xian answered with no delay despite his slight surprise. Chapter 360 Vastless Sea, Establishment of the Dragon Palace 2. Chapter 360, Vastless Sea, Establishment of the Dragon Palace 2. Ding. Just as he finished his words, the jade-green progenitor tree that he had no use for and which had always been in his chest area in his body flew out. The green glow that was emanated from the progenitor tree was brimming with vitality. For the entire tree, there was only a single branch which glowed in a grayish light. Rumble. The moment the progenitor tree appeared, the entire Dragon Palace shook. The Dragon Array was activated and intense energy was extracted from the surrounding radius of 1,000 meters. A vortex of energy formed above Wang Xian's head once again. Feeling the dense energy within the vortex, Wang Xian was certain that if this vortex of energy were to land on him, he would be crushed to death. All the energy flushed towards and into the progenitor tree. The intense energy instantly made the progenitor tree glow in a more dazzling green. As the glow shone brighter, the progenitor tree that was just the size of a palm initially was now growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Gradually, the progenitor tree grew to approximately 5 meters tall and the only grayish branch on it had also reached 2 meters. This made the entire progenitor tree look a little unique. The progenitor tree remained suspended in the sea while rotating. Eventually, it flew towards the dragon throne and entrenched itself behind the dragon throne. As for the branch, it was directly above the dragon throne. Wang Xian was shocked to witness the change to the progenitor tree. Ding. Dragon Palace established. Rumble. At this point, peace and silence returned to the entire sea after a loud rumble propagating through the seas and the notification of the system. However, horrifying images and scenes erupted in Wang Xian's mind. The majestic Dragon Palace surfaced gradually from the water surface and a water divine dragon that was over several thousand meters long stared solemnly before it. Behind it, there were countless crawfish soldiers, crab generals and various species of Dragon Palace members. Before it, countless humans stood on a large and vast piece of land. Kill? A wave of sky-shaking murderous intent filled with bloodlust swept across. As the horrifying battle began, the water divine dragon swayed its body and incited a tsunami that swept forward. Countless incredible humans took it directly and fought with the countless members of the Dragon Palace in a gruesome battle. At this point, the scene in Wang Xian's mind changed. Countless humans with incredible auras and majestic armor stood on clouds and were staring into the sea. A green dragon and countless Dragon Palace members were waiting in the sea. Once again, an intense battle erupted between the two factions. Fresh blood dyed the entire sea red. In the vast sea, an inferno divine dragon was swaying its huge body that spanned over 10,000 meters. Behind it, there were various fearsome-looking Dragon Palace members. Before them, there were densely packed groups of wild beasts. Rawr! The cries of the dragon and wild beasts signaled the beginning of another bloody battle. The scenes in Wang Xian's mind constantly changed. Each scene was filled with blood and violence. among which this blood was shed by divine dragons, dragon palace members, humans and wild beasts. There were corpses of densely packed zergs and a corpse of a divine dragon that was over 10,000 meters long. There were creatures with wings that emitted light. There were races with wings that emitted black auras and looked devilish. There were strange creatures that were burning in flames. There were various powerful races that roared on land, whistled in the seas and growled in space. Other than battles, all Wang Xian could see was blood. Survival of the fittest. There's no right or wrong in battles between races and battles for resources. To become an invincible divine dragon, you have to experience battles. The path to invincibility is to be laid with countless corpses. The strong rule and the winners take all. Invincible divine dragon shall stand on top of the universe. As the images dissipated, the two messages resounded in Wang Xian's mind and shocked him. Amidst the images that were shown to him, some were regarding divine dragons attacking other races while others were about other races hunting and killing divine dragons. Survival of the fittest. Resources and survival belonged to the strong. Weaklings had no right to live. They could either choose to drag out an ignoble existence or die. Every king's throne is built on the corpses of countless living creatures. Blood, war and destruction are inevitable. Wang Xian's mental state had undergone a huge transformation. The scenes and images shown to him had given him huge thoughts and feelings. Divine dragons were the highest tier existence within the universe. At the very beginning, divine dragons had been born with destructive forces. However, the divine dragon race had been shrinking at a horrifying pace. The top-tier bloodlines in the universe were usually few in number. Creatures like divine dragons were powerful. However, there were also humans in the universe that could get together, zergs that were huge in number and demon race that were made up of various wild beasts. When their numbers reached a certain level, they could still slay a dragon. They could still eradicate top-tier bloodline existences. This had led to the rapid extinction of many creatures with top-tier bloodline in the universe. To prevent themselves from being annihilated, divine dragons had built dragon palaces and developed the marine animals. Through this, they had once again regained their status as the most elite race in the universe. A dragon palace was extremely important to a divine dragon. Dragon palaces were the reasons why divine dragons could compete for supremacy in the universe. Wang Xian's eyes beamed and faint majestic aura emanated from his body. He looked at the dragon palace below him and the information on the dragon palace surfaced in his mind. Dragon Palace, Level 1. Dragon King, Wang Xian, Level 7 5 Elements Divine Dragon. Structures. Dragon King Hall. Level 1, increase cultivation and regeneration speed of the Dragon King by 300%. Dragon Transformation Pool. Level 1, absorb dragon blood to transform into divine dragon, dragon blood. None. Dragon Gates. Level 1, leap through the dragon gates to become a dragon. Effective for level 12 and below creatures. See Stabilizing Immortal Column. Level 1, main pillar of Dragon Palace. Ensure stability 10 miles around Dragon Palace. Increase fighting capacity of Dragon Palace members by 50%. Dragon Cave. Level 1, possess 8,000 Dragon Caves. 200% cultivating speed within Dragon Caves. Dragon Field. Level 1, increase 100% enlightenment rate when practicing in Dragon Field. Dragon Array. Level 1 Spiritual Energy Gathering Array. Increase spiritual energy gathering by 100%. Water Region Array Level 1. Could resist attacks from level 12 creatures and below. Spiritual Item. Progenitor Tree. Level? Can revive level 12 and below creatures. The information on the Dragon Palace was displayed fully in the mind of Wang Xian. Level 1 Dragon Palace was the most preliminary Dragon Palace. The preliminary Dragon Palace was just the model of a Dragon Palace established by the system. Wang Xian could strengthen the preliminary Dragon Palace and build more structures. For example, he could build a spiritual medicine garden, an elixir refining room and others. Other than that, the Dragon Palace could only increase in level after all the structures in it had been increased to level 2. When Dragon King Hall increased to level 2, cultivation speed would increase by 600%. The materials required would be 10,000 spiritual stones and a ton of spiritual grade metal. For the Dragon Transformation Pool to increase to level 2, it would require 10,000 spiritual stones and 100 tons of blood from spiritual level creatures. 4 dragon gates to increase to level 2, it would require 10,000 spiritual stones and a ton of spiritual level water attribute materials. For each level, the effects of the structure would increase by a fold. However, the materials required greatly shocked Wang Xian. Spiritual level materials and spiritual grade metals would mean materials and metals above level 10. The few requirements stated above were already insane. However, it got worse for the remaining structures. For example, to increase the level of the dragon field, it would require 1,000 inborn spiritual weapons. For the dragon array to increase in level, it would require 10 level 12 arrays. Chapter 361 Horrifying Creatures Besieging the Dragon Palace 1. Chapter 361 Horrifying Creatures Besieging the Dragon Palace 1. 1,000 pieces of the inborn spiritual weapons, and the level 2 dragon array? I haven't heard of them before. With regards to the spiritual grade metal and materials, we do have some spiritual grade metal for now, which is the rod owned by Roving Heavens, which weighs 500 kilograms. Next comes the formidable spiritual stones. 100,000 of them are required in order to upgrade a building. Are there even that many spiritual stones on this entire earth? Wang Xian listened with a burdened look. But as the Dragon Palace came into sight, he cast all doubts to the back of his mind and dived excitedly towards the Dragon King Hall. Bam! However, he was resisted by a powerful force as he was descending into deeper waters. In fact, the resistance propelled Wang Xian's body backwards. Oh, to think I've forgotten about the dragon array's effects. Wang Xian squeaked in embarrassment. The level 1 dragon array consisted of 2 formations, namely the spiritual energy gathering array and the water region array. The water region array could prevent trespassing of creatures below level 12. Now that the formations had been activated, even Wang Xian would only be able to enter via the Dragon's Gate. Should creatures below level 12 wish to enter the Dragon Palace, they could only do so by leaping over the Dragon's Gate. And for those which succeed, they would either possess the bloodline of the divine dragon or other powerful forces, or display innate talent. Hence, the Dragon's Gate had the gift of being able to sieve out innate talents of creatures. However, as a level 1 Dragon's Gate, it was only effective in handling creatures below level 12, while those beyond would be able to barge through based on their combat capabilities. Moreover, as the Dragon King, Wang Xian held control over the choice of creatures which could make it past the Dragon's Gate. Upon arrival at the Eastern Dragon's Gate, the gate appeared sturdy and majestic, given its massive size of 100 meters tall and 200 meters wide. Wang Xian leaped across the gates excitedly. Behind him was a crowd of Dragon Palace members, who looked on with zest as though they were worshipping him, while they followed along. This place would soon become what they called home, and also the territory which belonged exclusively to them. As all Dragon Palace members possessed Wang Xian's bloodline, they too were able to enter the premises, unhindered by the Dragon's Gate. Once in the palace, Wang Xian looked around at the pillars which stood at 100 meters tall, and noted the divine dragon motifs of various elements on them. Despite his body length of 7 meters while in dragon form, the place looked nonetheless spacious and awe-inspiring. Along the left and right were the multiple seamounts which had shifted over earlier, now beautified by the assorted corals growing on them. The only pity was that most of these seamounts were merely ornaments, as only 2 out of all of them had been transformed into dragon caves. The grounds of the Dragon Palace were made up of one massive sturdy rock. As Wang Xian willed in his heart, he reverted to his human form. Now that he had transformed back into a human, the entire palace seemed all the more colossal and regal, enough to impress and shock. This was no doubt the most sublime palace to ever exist in the world. As Wang Xian took in a deep breath, he could feel a boost to his dragon energy. The entire Dragon Palace brimmed with ample spiritual energy, thanks to the effects of the spiritual energy gathering array. As he walked further inwards, he arrived at the dragon field. Over here, one could double their efficiency of cultivation regardless of technique practiced. Multiple weapon racks lined the left and right of the dragon field. It remained a pity though, as there were currently no weapons on them. Wang Xian proceeded further inwards and walked for a whole 10 minutes, before he sighted the dragon cave on the right. The Dragon Cave was meant as the place of residence and cultivation for the Dragon Palace members. Living inside could help them reduce the time required to evolve by 2/3. Hence, It was the place to accelerate the combat abilities of the Dragon Palace members. There are only 1,000 rooms in one dragon cave. 10,000 spiritual stones will be required for the addition of another dragon cave, while 100,000 will be required to upgrade the cave's level. Wang Xian contemplated to himself. The dragon cave was no doubt pivotal to the Dragon Palace members. However, given that there were currently less than 1,000 members, one dragon cave would suffice for now. That said, there was still a need to construct more dragon caves, should the number of henchmen increase in the future. Wang Xian continued forward. The Dragon King Hall, also the largest building within the Dragon Palace, emerged right ahead. To enter the Dragon King Hall, one must climb up 9 steps, where each was half a meter tall. With one leap, Wang Xian entered directly into the Dragon King Hall. With a heated gaze, he looked intently at the golden dragon throne, which stood at 3 meters tall. And although it stood at a moderate 3 meters, the golden dragon throne spanned an overwhelming 15 meters wide. This was enough for Wang Xian to rest atop in his divine dragon form, or even lay spread out. Step by step, Wang Xian walked ahead. On both sides of the hall were many stone benches about 5 meters wide, meant as the seats for the Dragon Palace members. As he arrived at yet another 9 steps, Wang Xian eyed the dragon throne ahead before making his way up and sitting on the center of the throne. "Greetings, Dragon King," the crowd of Dragon Palace members behind called out to Wang Xian respectfully, as they remained below the steps. Wang Xian acknowledged with an air of prestige. As he sat on the throne, all the Dragon Palace members came into clear sight within a single glance. Thereafter, he stood up to look at the progenitor tree behind him. The fresh and green progenitor tree brimmed with life while it exuded mysterious powers. With a faint smile, Wang Xian cast his gaze further back. It was where the titanic sea-stabilizing Immortal column had rooted itself within the Dragon Palace. At a staggering 200 meters, it bore the words, "Sea-stabilizing Immortal column," in huge gold embossments, which shone in gold flickers. Whereas towards the far end of the Dragon King Hall were 9 pillars, each with a divine dragon motif, belonging to the 9 elements respectively. The heads of the dragons were all pointing to the same direction below, where a huge crater stood empty without a single trace of dragon blood. An area further behind had been sealed off by a range of seamounts. All in all, the Dragon Palace occupied a space of 10 kilometers in radius. Filled with endless miracles, it boasted the utmost extravagance and radiated magnificence. Wang Xian returned to the front of the dragon throne, where he stood with a stirring of exalted emotions. This was his very own Dragon Palace, a Dragon Palace of the Divine Dragon. The Dragon Palace has been built using merely 10,000 spiritual stones, along with some other materials. This is no doubt a benefit provided by the system. The 10,000 spiritual stones aside, the structures within the Dragon Palace would have required at least hundreds of thousands of spiritual stone alone. Wang Xian thought to himself as he looked around. The construction of a level 1 Dragon Palace was considered a benefit by the system. That said, given that the system emphasized consistent upgrading of combat abilities through one's own means, this could also be the one and only time when it granted such a benefit. However, Wang Xian had no clue as to the disasters which this benefit would bring him. The construction of the Dragon Palace had sapped all energy within the surrounding area of 1,000 meters in radius. Meanwhile, along the surface of the seas, a huge island sat, surrounded by 4 other islands. Surprisingly, the archipelago could not be seen from the outside, as if it had been hidden in another dimension. In the center of the island were numerous cultivation rooms. The experts residing inside were startled when the Dragon Palace was being constructed. Flying hurriedly out of their rooms, they suspended themselves in mid-air with heavy looks on their faces, as they stared in the direction of the Dragon Palace. "What's that? Why does it possess such a threatening stance?" one asked. "Such powerful energy, how terrifying. What exactly has happened?" "A creepy sea monster? Or a formidable treasure?" the second added. "Or the emergence of another ancient clan?" the third suggested. As the rain fell on them, it splattered off in reflex. Their eyes glistened as they looked on in disbelief. "A horrifying underwater creature," or another uttered. At the same time, within the area of 1,000 miles in radius, on the floating island of the sacred seas of swords, an elder balanced atop a spiritual sword. As he stood, He looked on in the same direction as the others with a face of utter astonishment. They were completely shocked by the sheer force of energy. Howl, howl, howl. Within the same moments and parameters, the various formidable clans, each with a territory of their own, had also experienced a loss of energy while detecting the prominent spiritual energy which had gathered in the direction of the Dragon Palace. To which the creatures menaced as they growled in the seas. With their mammoth bodies and perilous stance, the creatures dashed for the Dragon Palace underwater with icy stares. The newly constructed Dragon Palace was about to welcome its first crisis, a huge calamity in fact. The system had brought along a major challenge to the Dragon Palace, though assisting with its construction as a benefit. Guarded against harm, the Dragon Palace shall remain. Failing this, the Dragon Palace shall perish. Chapter 362 Horrifying Creatures Besieging the Dragon Palace 2. Chapter 362 Horrifying Creatures Besieging the Dragon Palace 2. The vast oceans were over 2 times the size of the land and filled with mysteries. The area of the Eastern Sea reached over 770,000 square meters. It was even larger than some countries. When the Dragon Palace was established, it absorbed the spiritual energy and other energies from the surroundings that spanned a radius of 1,000 meters. This attracted the attention of all the creatures in the vicinity. Within the 1,000-meter radius, there was a region filled with coral reefs. It was the territory of a ginormous octopus race with huge tentacles. From that region, a horrifying octopus that was over 20 meters long swam swiftly towards the Dragon Palace by swaying its huge tentacles. To its left and right, there were 4 to 5 huge octopuses that were over 15 meters long. Behind them there were 20-odd giant octopuses. They were entirely red in color with huge and bright eyes. Below them, their rows of razor-sharp teeth gave off an eerie glow. This type of ginormous octopus was also known as king cuttlefish. There were myths recorded about these king cuttlefish in the history of the Western world. They were the famous krakens who were able to easily capsize a ship. The squadron of king cuttlefish approached the Dragon Palace at high speed. Subconsciously, they felt that there would be treasures beneficial to them in that place. This originated from the instincts of living creatures. 100 miles away from the king cuttlefish, a group of enormous sharks were also swimming towards the Dragon Palace. Sharks were known to be at the top of the food chain in the sea. However, great white sharks that were known to many were just small animals compared to these enormous sharks. The shark that led the pack had a huge head that took up 1/3 of its entire body. However, the most terrifying part of it was its teeth. It was incomparably large and each tooth was the size of a small child. Its mouth was exposed and one could easily see the shreds of meat that remained between the teeth. This shark was over 18 meters long with a layer of thick fish scales. It constantly emanated strong barbarous and remote vibes. Other than this huge shark, there were a dozen-odd more sharks around it. Among which, the most attention-grabbing one was a shark with a single eye. Its eye was incomparably huge and was 1/2 meter in size. The single eye was right above the mouth and made the shark look dreadful and eerie. The eye was completely black as though it was the depth of the abyss. The Cyclops shark swam in the middle of the school with the largest megateeth shark. To the east of the Dragon Palace, there was only a single organism swimming rapidly towards it. However, this creature possessed horrifying wings. That's right, those were wings. With just a slight movement, it was propelled forward by several thousand meters. What was most dreadful about it was its size. The body was approximately 30 meters long and could match the largest creature in the seas, the blue whale. An ancient, barbarous and remote vibe emanated from this horrifying body. It appeared to be from a long time ago and possessed a terrifying aura. The ancient creature, Pliosaurus. The Pliosaurus wiggled its wings and dashed over 2,000 meters forward. Right ahead of him, a school of tiger whales appeared suddenly. Tiger whales were the strongest known race on Earth. They were daring enough to attack any creatures including the blue whale. For the portion of the seas that humans knew about, they were the strongest existence. However, when this school of tiger whales felt the horrifying aura from behind them, they immediately swam away in horror. Crack, crack, crack. However, the Pliosaurus accelerated at this instant. Its huge 7-meter mouth bit onto one of these tiger whales and swallowed it whole. Caca. In another bite, it devoured another tiger whale before swimming in the direction of the Dragon Palace once again. To the north of the Dragon Palace, creatures with huge heads and armor-like exteriors were approaching. Instead of having teeth, they had two long bony blades that extended from their jaws. These bony blades were just like the sides of a reaper. They were razor-sharp and could cut, tear and crush any objects. They were the dunkliestest race from historical times. Different races were swimming towards the mysterious Eastern Sea due to the appearance of the Dragon Palace. Other than these creatures, there were also anomalocaris that spanned 2 meters and had 2 huge front limbs. Over 100 anomalocaris were moving rapidly on the surface of the sea. There were also huge sea pythons that were over 20 meters long. The skin of these huge sea pythons appeared incomparably tough. There were also swordfish that were over 2 meters long and gave off a metallic shine. At the tip of their heads, there was a long and sharp edge that appeared extremely unique. In addition, there was also an extremely huge blue whale that was swimming towards the Dragon Palace. An ordinary blue whale could grow to over 30 meters long. It was the largest known creature across the land and seas. Some of these whales could even reach the size of some ships. However, the level of this blue whale was still a long distance away from other marine races. At this instant, Wang Xian wasn't aware that these creatures were swimming furiously towards the Dragon Palace from all directions. He was standing within the bedroom for the Dragon King, or his personal room. The bedroom of the Dragon Palace was situated on the main peak. It was carved out from the peak that was over 200 meters above the bottom of the sea. The entire bedroom was huge and spanned over 2,000 square meters. Among which Wang Xian was most satisfied with that large bed. As the most elite race that existed, the Divine Dragon had naturally witnessed countless cultures. The bedroom of the Dragon Palace would naturally have a bed. Moreover, this bed was extremely huge, luxurious and soft. The entire bed spanned 30 meters and was round in shape. Other than the bed, the bedroom had almost everything other humans would require. This greatly piqued the interest of Wang Xian. Based on the legacy of the Divine Dragon, Wang Xian learnt that human-form creatures were the largest race in the entire universe. Many races and creatures could transform into human form. Gradually they would pick up some habits of humans. What a big bed. This is going to be great. Wang Xian looked at the incomparably huge bed. He sat on it and was satisfied with how soft the surface was. This. Wang Xian beamed. At the thought of Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyue who were still above the sea's surface, he revealed a thrilled expression. Hee. Wang Xian couldn't hold back his laughter. I'll bring them over tomorrow and we definitely must make the best use of this bed to have an enjoyable night. Gur. However, just as Wang Xian closed his eyes and let his imagination run wild, a roar propagated throughout the Dragon Palace. He was taken aback. Dragon King, there's another marine race approaching our Dragon Palace. At this moment, the voice of Prime Minister Turtle reached Wang Xian. Wang Xian raised an eyebrow, got up and headed towards the highest point of the main mountain peak. At this place, there was a platform with a radius of 100 meters. Standing there he could overlook the entire Dragon Palace. That is? At this instant, Prime Minister Turtle and the Dragon Palace members were standing on top of their dragon caves and looking in the direction of the southern gate of the Dragon Palace. In the southern direction, a huge group of king cuttlefish were wiggling their huge tentacles as they swam towards the Dragon Palace. Chapter 363 Horrifying Creatures Besieging the Dragon Palace, 3. Chapter 363 Horrifying Creatures Besieging the Dragon Palace, 3. What's the king cuttlefish race doing here? Wang Xian frowned in suspicion. He was surprised at the sight of close to 30 king cuttlefishes at about 1,000 meters away. At the center of the school was the level 12 king cuttlefish, accompanied by 5 level 11 at its sides, while the remaining were all level 10 creatures. How timely. I couldn't obtain any dragon energy from the Aurora jellyfish earlier, given that it disappeared from its body as soon as it died. With these tens of king cuttlefishes, they'll bring me much dragon energy. Wang Xian smirked with temptation. This was the Dragon Palace, the territory of the Dragon King. By battling within an area of 20 kilometers in radius around the Dragon Palace, all Dragon Palace members engaged would have their combat abilities raised by 50%. Moreover, there was another advantage by battling within the grounds of the Dragon Palace, which was the speed of recovery. Be it the recovery of energy or wounds, they would do so at a much faster rate as compared to other places. An increase of 50% was already considered very high to Wang Xian. Go out and kill all of them. Wang Xian ordered with a smile. With a change of stance, he prepared himself to exit through the west gate. Roar roar. However, just as Wang Xian had begun to shift himself, a series of growls could be heard from up front at the north gate. The growls came consistently and frequently, sending tremors to the nearby area of tens of kilometers in radius. This was followed by a series of massive water surges which was coming straight at the Dragon Palace. Wang Xian frowned with a burdened look as he turned immediately to look in the direction of the north gate. And there they were, sharks. Schools of menacing giant sharks. It's the megateeth shark race. Wang Xian shrieked with narrowed eyes at the sight of them. Several days ago, Wang Xian and Prime Minister Turtle had also bumped into this horrifying race of megateeth sharks, while they were out selecting the location to construct the Dragon Palace. Within the entire megateeth shark race, there were 2 level 12 members along with a crowd of level 11, making them a much tougher force. Howl howl howl. More groans could be heard, along with a force of terror. To which, Wang Xian flinched as he looked hastily in the northeast direction, where he sighted a group of close to 50 terrifying creatures. They looked horrendous, especially with the megalodon teeth in its mouth. Its all-black body was wrapped in what seemed like body armor. It's the Dunkleistus, all of which are of the inborn level or even higher. Wang Xian gasped with a heavy look. Yet this was far from the end, as they were followed by a troop of over 100 Anomalocaris, each measuring 2 meters. Along with 20 or more horrendous deep-sea pythons, as well as a school of swordfish, each shining with a metallic sheen. To top it off, there were even more than 1,000 level 8 to 9 pterygotus, along with another 1,000 or so bizarre-looking fish. Gradually, within 10 minutes, the area was flooded by close to 5,000 frightening creatures. Each and every one emitted a horror-striking aura. Howl howl. The school of brutal sharks roared as they swayed their large bodies, staring intently in the direction of the Dragon Palace. The leading megateeth shark and cyclops shark looked on with glowing eyes as though they were on fire. They could sense that the energy which gathered here was much stronger than their territories, which made them very pleased. Hence they would like to make this space their own. With a growl, the duo led the rest of their race and dived straight ahead for the Dragon Palace. Boom. Suddenly, as the school of sharks arrived above the Dragon Palace, they were resisted with a sheer force of defense. Bobbing their heads, the leading megateeth shark and cyclops shark glanced ahead with a confused look. Howl howl. The 2 sharks growled again. This time, all accompanying sharks crashed ahead with the duo. Bang bang bang. That said, the defense of the dragon array sent them spinning in circles once more. In response, the sharks bared their jaws and stared darkly. Besides the megateeth shark race, the school of Dunkleistus also came crashing using their bodies, which were as powerful as war machinery. Tens of Dunkleistus dived ahead, charging straight at the Dragon Palace, which resulted in successive loud crashes as they collided with the dragon array. Pat 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 pat. Loud and crisp smashes could be heard, as the giant king cuttlefishes lashed their extended tentacles against the dragon array. However, the dragon array merely gave off several ripples under the constant bombardment by the respective forces. Why have so many powerful underwater races gathered here at the Dragon Palace? Wang Xian asked. He was puzzled by the tens of thousands of terrifying creatures which had gathered around, amongst which were about 8 level 12 combatants. In addition, there were even more level 11 creatures hovering at about 40. There were also more than 100 inborn level creatures. The creatures, each with a threatening stance, were dying to enter the Dragon Palace. Wang Xian looked on with a burdened look while the past flickered in his head. There was probably too much commotion during the construction of the Dragon Palace. They were likely attracted over by the 2 energy swirls. Wang Xian speculated to himself as he inhaled deeply. Thank goodness for the dragon array's protection, he exclaimed. The dragon array was able to defend against the attacks by creatures of level 12 and below. Hence these surrounding creatures would not be able to overcome the defense of the dragon array, unless they were able to enter through the Dragon's Gate. That said, the Dragon's Gate was erected to help sieve out outstanding members for the sake of the Dragon Palace. One who wishes to go past the Dragon's Gate must possess extraordinary wisdom, talent and bloodline. As for these groups of creatures, any attempts to enter through the Dragon's Gate would be immensely tough. Howl howl. Another growl could be heard, just as Wang Xian heaved a small sigh of relief after checking out the surroundings. This growl was brimming with the utmost austerity and immense compulsion. And as the growl surged past, all surrounding creatures, including the races gathered here, trembled briefly. A tinge of fear flashed across their eyes. The respective races and formidable organisms turned their heads towards the east. Earlier, there hadn't been anyone at the eastern entrance of the Dragon's Gate. But now, a ginormous creature gradually swam its way over. It was a truly magnificent mammoth, as it was over 10 meters bigger than the largest creature which had gathered here. Its physical size was beyond shocking along with its 4 giant wings. As it inched its way over briefly, it sent the surrounding waters on a violent tumble. Like a victor which had transcended from the past, its body boasted a rustic and dull aura. This, Wang Xian muttered in astonishment at the sight of the creature. Pliosaurus. It's a level 13 Pliosaurus. Wang Xian let out a low growl while his face grew heavy at the sight of the level 13 creature. After all, this was a level 13 Pliosaurus. Wang Xian was currently a level 7 divine dragon. In addition, he possessed the pure bloodline of the divine dragon, which was touted as the apex of all bloodlines. Hence, he was able to supersede 5 levels during combat in the face of ordinary creatures. That said, a 5-level transcendence would mean that Wang Xian was only able to handle a level 12 creature. To think that a level 13 creature had now appeared. How did it attract such a threatening presence? Wang Xian choked in trepidation as his gaze remained fixed on the Pliosaurus. As the Pliosaurus flapped its wings gently, it ascended above the dragon palace. It then narrowed its eyes and peered at the surrounding creatures with contempt. Formidable as they were, even the megateeth shark, cyclops shark and Dunkleistus had a tinge of fear in their eyes. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.